Meeting of the council. This is January 31st, 6 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. In chambers, we have Mayor Barry, Councillors Abbott, Broughton, Reuter, which constitutes a quorum. We also have CAO Tobin, CFO Miller, and I believe we have Works Manager Jaffer as well. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order. And we'll move right into the closed portion of the meeting. I'll move that the regular meeting in the Village of Lions Bay be closed to the public due to the consideration of items pursuant to Section 90 of the Community Charter that provides Section 90.1, part of the council meeting be closed to the public, is subject to the subject matter being considered relates to one or more of the following: A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. C, labor relations. And the consideration of whether the council meeting should be closed under the provision of the subsection number 2. So with that, we will close the meeting off. And Marina, thank you. Okay, welcome back. We've just come out of the closed portion of the meeting. We did have to adjourn the meeting early, so there is nothing to report out at the moment. And we'll enter back into closed at the end of this open session. So with that, do we have a motion to open the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Yep.
All in favor? Yep, that motion carried. Okay, we'll welcome everyone back to the meeting. And we've also got Ron Miller here, as one of the gallery pointed out. I think it was Trudy. So welcome, Ron Miller. And okay, item number 4. Let's see, we're pointing out for the closing. Item number 4, adoption of the agenda. And that is a January 31st. Okay, agenda. Let's see, the recommendation is that the agenda for January 31st regular meeting for the council of the Village of Lions Bay is adopted as circulated. Is there any discussion, or do we have someone that can move that?
So moved.
Second? Okay, and discussion?
I have a couple. Do you want to go? Or you need to talk there? Do you want to talk, or should I?
Why don't we put our hand up?
Okay.
Okay, there we go. Councillor Abbott.
Okay.
Councillor Reuter, next up.
So on a couple of items, I'm just acknowledging we received these yesterday. I'm not ready to approve the minutes. I haven't had time to go through them. So I'd like those to come to a following meeting. On the mayor's attached mayor's report as well. I mean, that we only got yesterday. I didn't have time to go through that. I've been working all day.
I'm sorry, we're speaking to the adoption of the agenda.
Yes.
I'm suggesting I'd like to change something on the agenda. And then on the 2 verbal reports, I would rather received reports than had verbal reports with no description or absolutely no idea of what it is. Hasn't even got a title. We know who it's coming from, but not what it is. So I suggest I'd like to see what the report's about before it comes to council.
Okay, anything further? Councillor Abbott?
No.
Okay, Councillor Reuter?
Yeah, this will be somewhat similar to the discussion we had in closed, which is that as per our council procedures bylaw, the submissions to the agenda need to be in by the prior Thursday at noon. It seems to me generally that making the package available to councillors and to residents at this late hour doesn't give anyone time to prepare and doesn't allow us to do our duty and to come to meetings prepared and to speak effectively and intelligently as to what we're studying. That goes for a number of the items in here, it seems to me. I could go through a list here, but I'll let somebody else speak first if they wish, but that's my basic opening point.
Okay, Councillor Broughton.
Speaking to the adoption of the agenda, which is the topic I believe it is, we've moved adoption of the agenda. And I think we should proceed unless there's a suggestion to amend it, that we proceed with the agenda. I certainly hear concerns, and I think those can be raised at the appropriate time in the agenda.
Okay. And again, speaking to the adoption of the agenda, as has been outlined by the CAO, and there is a 24-hour requirement. I think all of council has talked in the past about trying to get this agenda out well in advance. But under the current circumstances with council and staff still getting to know each other, and it takes some time in order to have that working relationship, that this is the best that was available, was 24 hours in advance, and that meets the requirements. And CAO Tobin, please comment whether that meets the requirements or not.
Yes, it does meet the requirements of procedure bylaw under section 55. I could just also speak, if I may, to the logistics involved. I still don't have an operational computer in my office. The phone is still not working. I don't really have secretarial staff available to me exclusively on any matter at the moment. And in the meantime, we're trying to manage all of these issues. So hopefully when we get a full complement of staff and we get an operational office where there's an actual computer and a telephone that I can use, that will certainly speed matters. In the meantime, a lot of the work I've been doing of my own typing and trying to organize best I can. And I can't put any more hours than I'm already putting in to try and facilitate matters. Right now, I haven't I've worked all weekends to try and get matters done. So it's regrettable. But again, it seems to me that if council is very concerned about procedural issues, they should want to attend to the actual procedures which they've adopted and been in place since 2015.
Okay.
And
okay. Thank you very much for that, CAO Tobin and Councillor Ab.
Can I just add something?
I think we'll try to stick to procedures just for the audience, and that we're going to go around. We're going to have a motion second, and then we'll each speak to something, and we'll have up to 5 minutes, and then we'll have a second opportunity to speak to that topic, and then we'll call the question. So, Councillor Abbott.
So two things. I understand the desire to go through the agenda as it is, and we can decide at the time whether we had a reasonable time to do something or defer to the next meeting. I'm okay with that in general, but I'd like to remove item 10.2 and 10.3 because they have no information at all of what that's about. I'd like those to be removed. And then CEO just reminded me of something. There's something I'd like to add to the agenda. The last minute, I was made aware very recently that we have a job posting out for a village clerk. Is that correct? I would like to add a discussion on that into the agenda.
Excuse me.
Councillor Broughton.
It would seem to me that would come under the acting CAO's report.
Yeah, I believe that would.
Has to remove. So I think.
Why would you assume that's coming under the acting CAO's report?
Because it's a CAO matter.
So just point of order. I believe we're
through the chair
speaking to the adoption of the agenda, and if we would like to add additional items, then I think we can add them. But the current agenda as it is, we're speaking to that. Where Councillor Abbott has talked the second time. Did you have something to add to that, Councillor Broughton?
I'm sorry, I lost what he wanted to add.
I would-
Well, I think Councillor Abbott is making an amendment.
I would like to add to the agenda a discussion on the village clerk posting that I've recently found out about on our website.
Okay, so that's an addition to the agenda under new business.
Yes,
All right. Yep.
Okay, so the agenda as is, but adding the discussion on the new posting.
in the
Yes, you
deletion
would-
of 10.2 and 10.3.
Okay. Councillor Reuter, any discussion on that?
Yeah, I've got a few things I'd like to say.
Okay.
I would support that, the deletion of items, what were they here?
10.2 and 10.3, I believe.
Uh-huh. Correct. It also seems to me that the language in point 5, under public participation, and also mentioned further at the end, on the second part, is language that we've never seen before. I've heard the words openness and transparency here multiple times. This doesn't seem to be consistent with that. There seems to be a procedural language in here, which I think is at odds with that. And I would like to see that language removed.
Sorry, can you be more specific? I don't
Point 5,
understand.
that we remove the words authority, maximum of.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
There's a motion on, well, orders of the day.
Yeah,
There's a motion on the floor and now you're making a motion on the motion on the motion. So
no, I'm not.
I'm not clear.
I'm proposing that I have a problem with the section 5.
Okay, then that's an amendment, which would be dealt with after we've dealt with this amendment.
Yeah, we're still on Councillor Abbott's amendment, so we're speaking to that.
Are
Do
we?
you have a comment on Councillor Abbott's amendment, which was, I believe, to eliminate 10.4.2, 10.4.3, and add the posting of the new position. Did you have a comment on that?
I
Councillor
would
Ryder?
support that and reserve the right to comment as to other portions of the agenda
For sure.
Okay,
when ever is
Okay.
deemed appropriate.
okay.
Perfect. That's perfect.
And I believe that I calling you.
I would like to speak. to
Okay.
yes. I have no difficulty with an additional item on the agenda. I have great difficulty with removing the opportunity for our acting CAO and our acting CFO to address council and for the village of Lions Bay to hear what they have to say. So I have great difficulty with that and would in no way support that motion, but I would be prepared to support a motion to add the discussion as identified by Councillor Abbott.
Okay,
Speaking definitely against this amendment.
okay. All right, I'll speak to that. I think we've talked before. We want to be as open as possible, share as much with the village as possible. So I would not be for eliminating as an example, 10.4.3, the mayor's Vancouver committees. I've attended various committee meetings over the last 2 months on behalf of the village of Lions Bay. I would love the opportunity to share my findings with the community. So I wouldn't be in favor of cutting that out. We have a new CFO, Ron Miller, and I think we owe it to the village and everyone, the councillors, to hear from Mr. Miller and the CAO. So I think, we're trying to encourage open dialogue. So why would we want to eliminate it? So I wouldn't be for that. I'm very much for discussion on the posting of a new position. So that's my piece.
Question.
Sorry, Councillor Broughton,
Well,
second time around, second and last.
I've spoken twice. I think we need to vote.
Okay.
As a point of clarity, you mentioned 10.4. I didn't suggest removing 10.4. I didn't suggest removing the mayor's committee discussion.
It's acting CEO.
Okay, I wouldn't, I wouldn't be for removing any of that. I think the more information that we share with the public, the better. So I would be for adding to new business, the discussion on a new posting. So that was your motion, Councillor
We're dealing with.
Abbott. Good, would you? Do you want to call a question on that motion?
Well, we could call a question on that one, sure.
Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye, motion defeated. Would you like to rephrase that motion?
So did you defeat both my requests?
Yes.
No.
They were all in one motion, so they were defeated. If you would like to put a new motion forward,
A new motion to remove the, sorry.
I think your motion was to add the discussion about the new posting.
I'm going to put forward a new motion.
Okay,
I will withdraw the removal of, although I find it, you know,
It's been defeated.
I know that.
it's been defeated. So if the new motion is to have a discussion.
Not to interrupt.
No, just correct my motion. Just trying to correct the motion. Just give me a second. I'm going to withdraw my request that we remove the two items we have no idea what they're about. And to the point that they both have equal opportunity to discuss right throughout the meeting with the rest of us. But I withdraw that in the interest of getting a discussion on the table about this new position that seems to be being created and recently went up on our website.
Okay.
My revised.
All right, so just clarify that initial motion was defeated. You're putting a new motion forward. Do we have a second for that?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay. Now, the adoption of the agenda with the addition of Councillor Abbott's.
So
Okay, second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm opposed. I thought Councillor Reuter was going to have a chance to make some amendments to the agenda.
You did.
Yep.
He did, he was making the amendment, I believe, same, backing up your amendment.
You have nothing else?
I had some further things to add, which I asked an opportunity to do.
Okay, so we'll wind the clock back. We won't call it, if you want to make a motion, Councillor Reuter, please do.
No, I'm not making a motion. I'm simply suggesting,
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm simply suggesting once again that there are a number of things here, most things that we have not seen in a timely way, that we haven't had a chance to study. And that residents also haven't had a chance to take a look at this. The public participation sections are restrictive and are the very antithesis of openness and transparency. And I would like this language removed. We have had residents.
Sorry, which
forward,
language? Clarify that again.
The language under authority. You can go to section 15. The timing of speakers and 30-second notice to the speaker. I mean, in the past, we've had 2 gallery moments, and we haven't restricted speakers in terms of speaking only to motions that have been or items that have been in the agenda. I think it's something we shouldn't start now. So I would like that removed.
Is that a motion? I'm sorry.
That is a motion to strike those items. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, no, we have discussion first, Councillor Broughton.
Okay.
Can we have a second?
Okay, second, yes, you're correct. Second, okay, discussion.
So motion's on the floor. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. The motion, I'm not clear what the motion is, but the language is not restrictive, and the language is not, it doesn't appear exactly to look exactly like it, like we saw it, I think, in the last meeting. But the point to say it's restrictive, each speaker traditionally has had 2 minutes up to a maximum of 10 minutes. As long as I can remember, for the last 15 years. That seems to be consistent. So I'm not sure what my.
You don't see the new language in there?
Excuse me, I'm.
Councillor Broughton is talking.
So anyway, so I'm not sure. So you're requesting that that wording be removed.
So the motion,
Could I just clarification? Is that the motion that that public participation, the wording be removed?
Are you asking me the question here?
I'm asking for clarification, I guess.
Yes.
I would like to.
That the language in there that restricts and conscripts public participation and makes it and sets limits to it, that be removed.
okay. All right, I'm just gonna call on CEO Tobin, but just before I do, I think this conversation and what's happening right now is indicative of policies, procedures, and bylaws that over the last couple terms have been written, rewritten, and they're not in the interest of the community. We're not able to have this free-flowing discussion in a productive and constructive manner. And that is one reason why, as mayor, I asked the CAO, could you please revisit the procedures, policies, and bylaws? Because we get into this discussion which goes around in circles, and it's just not in the interest of the community. You know, I signed up for this job to serve the community in the best interest. And what I've seen is this inability to communicate, play in the sandbox, so to speak. And so I think that it's important. One of the most important things that we have early in this term is to come up with some workable policies, procedures, and bylaws. Because what we have right now, as we can all see, isn't working for the community. It's not in the best interest of our community. So, CEO Tobin, can you please comment on this particular procedure?
Yeah, with respect to particular procedure, the language is found in Schedule A of the procedure bylaw, and I'll just read it. Council will begin and end council meetings with public participation of up to 2 minutes each, of up to 10 minutes each, with each person who wishes to speak allocated a minimum of 2 minutes. Now that's directly out of your procedure bylaw.
That has not been altered in any way.
And no, that's exactly
Our current.
that's your current procedure bylaw, which I believe was approved in around about 2015 or so. And the word authority in there, that's added in the agenda by way of my note to council to say, if you're dealing with this matter, these are the references you should have it. But that was intended to be as an aid without having to look through the procedure bylaw and other pieces of legislation as to what is the authority for the action you're proposing to take. That's the purpose of it. It also points out that, yes, the procedure bylaw is not facilitative, and because of this, it's already been demonstrated so far in this conversation that it needs revision, and so it reflects the values of the village. And so putting it out in the way it's been done, it underlines the issue.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Tobin, Councillor Broughton, put up his hand first, and then we'll go to Councillor Abbott.
So is the motion on the floor that we remove the wording in number 5?
Yes, the motion is to strike the wording in number 5.
Okay.
And
And
further, also the similar wording in 15.
Okay, let me just quickly refer to 15.
And then I'd like to say something after Neville has spoke.
Okay. My understanding is that the CAO put those in to be helpful in terms of quoting, and it's caused some consternation, so that's unfortunate. So I understand the motion. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, so you're correct. This procedures bylaw has been unchanged 4 years I was on council. It was always loosely applied. It was never enforced. We frequently had more people. I guess the concern is by stressing it in the way it's bolded and underlined here, are we now going to enforce this on people? Is that what the intention here is? And I didn't realize the authority was the CAOs, so it was the chairs.
No, with the greatest respect to the chair, I'm referring to the legal authority, not my authority.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Abbott, anything further?
No,
No, Councillor Ryder.
The mayor just spoke about free-flowing discussion. And again, to include this here is not leading to that. It seems to me to be restrictive. We've had members of the public step forward and we've given them leeway to speak longer than 2 minutes. I think one speaker spoke for 14 minutes and it wasn't a delegation. And I think that we should continue to be open and allow for that free-flowing discussion and not place restrictions in the agenda that discourage that.
Okay.
Just on a point of information and privilege, those notations in the agenda are aids. They have no force and effect in and of themselves. They're merely reference to other documents. So the fact that they appear in the agenda, it means they're just referencing other information, and they have no force and effect in the document itself. So that it's an aid to council to be aware of the fact that if there's going to be a public meeting, this is what prevails, as opposed to there are members up around the table who pride themselves on knowing the rules. And now I've just been advised that in fact the rules aren't adhered to.
Yeah.
And so we just have to be clear what is the game and what are the rules. And if we don't like the rules, change the rules. And by all means, and I've drafted a 40-page procedural bylaw to assist in that. That's what I wish to say.
Okay. I appreciate that, Mr. Tobin. So my comment again is look, the intent here is that we have productive discussions, and what we're seeing, this is another example that our policies, procedures, and bylaws need to be reviewed. And here we are, what I would say, putting in a lot of time here that we could be focused towards matters that are critical and a priority. And to me, this is just an example. Here is a section that needs some revision, and along with many others. So I would encourage us as a council to really get serious about reviewing those policies, procedures, and I'd even call on someone like Carl Burr, who formerly helped draft some of these and was a mayor, to maybe sit down with you, Mr. Tobin, and have a good discussion on this, because we're seeing that this council and the village isn't being served here. We're just this just isn't productive, and I think we need to get serious on this. So we've gone around the table once. We'll go around a second time. Councillor Broughton. Go ahead, Councillor Abbott.
I was just going to suggest you call the motion. Call the motion.
No, we've got a second opportunity. If Councillor Broughton wanted to speak, did you want to speak?
Well, very briefly, there has been no speaker who has spoken 14 minutes to this council. So I'm not sure where that's coming from, but it's confusing. But the second item is that this council has never, as I recall, has never limited the presentations. In fact, we have never had 5 presentations. So, and the presentations have tended to be 1.5 to 2.5 minutes. I think we should just move ahead and have and open. I'm very anxious to hear what the people of Lions Bay have to say to us.
Okay, there was a motion.
So motion to question.
Councillor Ryder.
If you're anxious to hear and you want to hear from people, then I would suggest that we don't place restrictive language in the agenda. And as to that we've never had somebody speak for 14 minutes, we did. It was a local resident and business owner
In the
who
committee of the whole.
spoke. Yeah, there was also
Yeah, committee of
the same rules applied and we didn't shut him down. And so I suggest we keep it open and consultative, and as the mayor said, allow for free flowing discussion and participation of residents.
I believe that's,
Okay, we'll call the question. The motion was to change the procedure bylaw here. Did we have a second? That was the motion, was it? A second? Okay, all in favor?
We're not changing the procedure.
No.
We're asking for that language to be removed from the.
removing those two statements in the.
Well, okay, so it's part of the procedures bylaw, so removing it,
No,
No, the motion was just to remove it from the agenda.
Remove
Yeah.
it from the agenda.
from today's agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Yes.
yes,
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion defeated.
Okay.
Okay, anything further before we approve this agenda? With the one change that Councillor Abbott had,
Okay, move it. Move
Okay.
the
adopt the agenda.
agenda with the item number 15 added. Yeah.
Okay, second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye,
yes.
motion carried. Okay. All right, public participation, item number 5, Marina,
We have Tamara Leger.
okay. Tomorrow,
Hi, everyone. I have a question as a point of information, and it's in regards to the background of Mr. Anthony Tobin. And I am just wondering if Mr. Tobin is the same Mr. Tobin who is cited in a judgment at the BC Supreme Court of Appeal. And my concern, I'm just hoping to get a yes or a no, because if it's yes, I do have a concern in that in this case, there's a citation which alludes to an alleged abuse of public office and misfeasance in public office in respect of a course of conduct. And it's quite serious, and it's far reaching, and it involves multiple layers of government. But I'm just wondering if Anthony Tobin, our CAO, is the same Anthony Tobin. Thank you.
okay, we'll have to look into that.
Well, I can spare you.
Okay,
The answer is no.
okay, the answer was no, but thank you for that question. Next, please.
Dr. C. Dyer.
Okay,
Hi, everybody.
hello.
I have two very quick questions. One is, do you plan to make this closed segment a regular occurrence at the beginning of every council? I noticed that that's happened at the beginning of every council meeting since the tenure of this particular council. I'm wondering if you have plans to have that continue as a regular thing.
Okay,
Through the chair, if you like, I could give you some context.
sure, and then we'll ask Mr. Tobin as well.
So I don't know the answer to the question, Karen, but I can confirm this practice started on the last council. That when COVID happened and most people were home, we decided to have a short closed session in the front of the meeting where we could potentially report out committee appointments, those kind of things to the public before the next meeting started, which gave them a chance to comment on it. So that's the source of it. Prior to that, they closed the doors at the end of the open. But as to whether it continues or not, I can't comment.
Okay, I'll just add that I'd prefer to have things in open. And this has been the format that we've adopted here, or that we've moved into. But personally, I'd love to see everything that we possibly can come out in open, and I will do my best as we move forward to keep everything in open. So if that happens, then the standard time for public is 7 o'clock. But I'll defer to Mr. Tobin on what the regulations are.
Yeah, well, you will notice that every time the council moves into a closed session, that refers to section 90 of the community charter. And there are two provisions there. It gives a list, section 97(1) provides a list of conditions which if any of those are obtained, then council may go into closed session. And they usually involve things like personnel matters, financial matters, and other matters affecting the interests of the village or the community involved, which if made public at an inappropriate time may harm either a personal interest, which is a private interest, or the interest of the village. So it's a legal requirement not to put certain matters in, but it's also discretionary. And for the most part, the discretion has been exercised to protect private information, the confidential information of individuals, and also involving legal matters and personnel matters. Those are usually the items for which closed sessions are fully justified.
Okay, thank you for that. Next, Marina.
Sorry, through the chair, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
There's also section 91(2), which is not discretionary, has certain items and must be enclosed. So there's that as well.
Sorry, I thought I'd mentioned that.
Yeah, quite simply, it's land labor law is normally what we need to look at. It's very specific.
Okay, Marina.
Next, we have Karen Jeffrey.
Okay, Karen.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to speak to the policies, the procedures policy. I would agree that it really needs to be rewritten, but what you're, I guess, rallying against is the fact that it's already in the bylaw, the 2-minute, I just want to reiterate what has already been said. It has been there since 2015. The previous council exercised the 2-minute limit a lot. And if all you need to do is go back and listen to the videotapes and you will see them. The mayor often shut people off and shut people down and said, thank you very much after 2 minutes. So I would love to see that language changed. It's under 27. I'll just pull it up. And it's in there, and that's not this council. And I think it's really important when we talk about the procedures policy and what you're railing against, that it's not this new council that brought those policies in. It is a previous council and a council before that. So you can see the amendments on the policy, and they go back to 2015, there's 2017, there's also 2022, there's 2020. One I think is of interest, if you were to read it, is under definitions, number 4. I'll just bring this up. Under 4, oddly enough, under definitions, under correspondence, and this is a bylaw, that's the current policy from the previous council and mayor. Under correspondence, it says means documentation submitted to the village either electronically or in hard copy, which A, is addressed specifically to council or a majority of council members, or B, that the corporate officer determines based on the content should be included as a council correspondence. Right there in your bylaws, you have the authority of the corporate officer being allowed to decide whether or not a letter or correspondence can be moved forward. And so if you want these bylaws changed, I would support that 100% because they need to be changed. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Is there any questions from the gallery here?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll go to.
And then we'll come back to the online version.
Rose Dudley.
My questions are about this hiring policy practices. I saw no posting for the position of interim part-time CFO. So I'm going to ask Mr. Miller how he found out about the job.
Oh, quick, can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Through Ken Berry, through the mayor.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. And I want to know, did all members of council meet with you, Mr. Miller, prior to your acceptance of this job?
No.
No. Thank you. I did see the posting for the position of clerk. It was posted for a week. And I may have missed it, but I don't think it was posted on a government site. So I'm wondering how many people would have had an opportunity to apply for the job. Because it was a very small window to expect people, and only people in Lions Bay are likely to have seen that. And so did this person has this person been, he or she got the job yet? Has this person been appointed? No.
Sorry, is that your last question? I'll let you finish and then I'll answer.
Yes. I want to know if that person was known by anyone sitting around this table.
Okay, is that the end of your questions, Rose? That's all I'm asking.
Yes, that's.
Okay, all right, thank you. You can sit down and I'll answer the question. Thank you very much for that. Just by way of background, Ron Miller is the former partner with MNP accounting firm. He's been an auditor, very strong background. And I provided a list that I think it was 7, 8 individuals that could potentially fill the jobs of CAO, CFO, and I provided that before Christmas to all the councillors. And councillors asked me, how do you know these people? And I said, I've spent a whole career sourcing out which individuals were talented and which individuals you could rely on, you could trust. And I gave that list to the councillors and I said, please follow up on these. And I said, please add to that list any individuals that you think could help the village of Lions Bay. And that was before Christmas.
Point of order.
And then, no,
Point of order. Could you resist the speeches and just answer the question? Because we're having a lot of speeches tonight.
Okay, good enough. So the question was, Rose, do I know Mr. Miller? Yes, I knew him. Very talented, very respected individual. So I pay no apologies. I am trying to help the village of Lions Bay move forward here. So yes, Anthony Tobin, I did not know him prior. I was introduced to him and I put him on that list. Councillors Reuter, Councillors Abbott said, we need to hire Anthony Tobin. And I said, are you sure? We need to hire him. We did a resolution to that fact, and then we moved forward. Okay, so these individuals are talented individuals, and we go around in circles here with this.
Excuse me.
And go ahead.
Sorry.
Councillor Abbott had his hand up first.
Point of information rather.
Sorry,
It's the fact.
I have to put my hand up.
Sorry, Councillor Abbott. Let Councillor Abbott.
Everyone.
Let Councillor.
Senator Marcus, now you're doing it too much.
My apologies. Councillor Abbott had his hand up first,
Go ahead.
and then we'll go to you, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would just like to echo what Councillor Reuter just said. We answer the questions and can we move on? We don't need speeches all the time. I'd like to echo that.
Okay, good enough. Councillor Broughton.
The fact was that our interim CAO was hired by unanimous motion of resolution of council. It's a fact.
Okay, and we've empowered our CAO to move forward. So, Councillor Reuter.
Yeah, there was a question from Rose as to which counselors had met with Ron Miller. I have never met him until this evening.
What?
And
And how many times were you asked
excuse me,
to meet
excuse me.
with them? Because you're, don't
Excuse me,
mislead.
no, excuse me. I have never met him and have asked to meet with him and have received no response as to that ask.
Well, that's not, I had made many offers for you to meet. And as we talked about before, I requested at least 4 times to meet with you and you were unavailable. And that's why you weren't appointed to the finance committee, because
Let's
we had a lot of important
Point of
things
order
to do
again.
with reach.
let's
We need
the speech again.
Okay.
And the misinformation.
One last question or comment by Councillor Abbott, and then we'll move on.
Same comment, no speech. Councillor Reuters is referring to an email him and I drafted to the CEO over a week ago. One of the things we asked, can we come down and meet with Ron Miller? Can you facilitate that? We have had no reply. That's what he's referring to. That's all. Move on.
Just to,
Mr. Tobin.
yeah, to Mrs. Dudley's question about the municipal position. It's no one has been selected yet, and interviews are being planned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So could I just make another comment?
Mhm.
Because I'm uncomfortable about the fact that people are being hired because they know people on council. To me, it looks like a conflict of interest. I know that you all agreed that Mr. Tobin was the person who was for the job, and he's very well qualified. We all know that. But I also know that he was brought on board by Councillor Broughton. And to me, this is a conflict of interest. When you have people being hired who are friends of people around this table, that doesn't sit well with me, and I don't think it sits well with anybody in this neighborhood.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dudley.
Hey,
Councillor Broughton, your name was brought up. You've got your hand up.
actually, I don't think knowing someone precludes them from being considered. I think knowing someone and knowing the quality of the individual is certainly something that should strongly be considered. I did not know Mr. Tobin until September of this year, when I met him when I was running for council. And in discussions with him, I was very impressed with his background, his interest in the community, his concern about the community. And in fact, I was ecstatic when he considered the possibility, when he has many other options internationally, when he considered taking on the role of an interim CAO with our community. So if that's a problem, I apologize if that's a problem for you. However, if you know someone, and if someone is known, that should not preclude them from being involved in the community. In fact, it's a good recommendation. It's not the only one, but as a result, we'll be bringing forward Mr. Tobin's name of the other, introduced him to the other councillors, and they were extremely impressed. And as a result of the impression that they had and the research that they did and the understanding of the quality of the candidate, we unanimously resolved to hiring, which was required. It actually wasn't required to be unanimous, but
Okay, Councillor Brown, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Marina, can you allow one of the other guests, and then we're going to take 2 more questions or comments, and then we'll move on. So thank you very much for your patience and for everyone's interest.
Next, we have Casey Dyer again.
Okay. Casey.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I couldn't unmute myself there for a while, so now I can. This was just a quick point of procedure question. I've noticed that you've taken several votes this evening. There are 4 voting members at the table, but several of those votes have been defeated. Mayor Barry, does your vote carry extra weight?
No, when it's 2 and 2, they're defeated. The motion's defeated. And
So
then
if it's a
Councillor
tie vote,
Burns,
it's automatically defeated?
sorry, a
I'm
tie,
sorry.
yes.
It's
Yeah,
a tie, it's automatically
that's
defeated?
correct. Yes.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
Next, we have Rebecca Casper.
Okay. Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. Just a point of clarification. In the village update on January 27th, under protection of village assets, Mayor Barry, you reported that, or you mentioned that a person no longer on staff at the village still had signing authority on the village's principal bank account. At the finance committee meeting today, you indicated that there were 4 people that had signing authority, 3 of which at the time were current employees. So that included the CFO. And the 4th signer was the previous CAO. So is that the person that you were referring to in your email, in your village update?
I don't think I want to get into personal names. I think the overriding concern is the financial controls. And so we're making moves and that'll be looked at later in this meeting to correct and strengthen those financial controls. So I'd prefer not to name individuals. And Mr. Tobin, anything further on that? No. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So we are
Perhaps
addressing that.
if I can rephrase my question, then you did say that the previous CAOs still had signing authority on an account. So my question then is, why wasn't the signing authority removed?
How would we answer that?
It was a matter that was dealt with in a closed meeting a week or so ago by council, and the matter was not resolved.
We're looking to resolve those matters today. It's being brought out and there'll be some discussion on that as we move forward here. So
It may inform the discussion.
yeah, so I would encourage you to continue to listen, and perhaps at the end, the questions, if we haven't answered your question, you could bring it forward again. So one last question and then we'll move on.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Karen.
Thanks.
Jeffrey.
Hi, I just was wondering if there could be a point of clarification, because I'm looking at the organizational chart as well as it's my understanding that the CAO has the authority to hire the CFO, the works manager, everything. The only authority for hiring is to the CAO, which was unanimous, and he was given authority, I'm assuming, maybe I'm wrong about that, to act as the CAO, in which case the council wouldn't necessarily have any authority to meet the CFO. I'm not saying it wouldn't be nice, but I'm currently, as it stands, which may be something that you want to look at, I don't think that the CFO needs to be vetted by the council, but I could be wrong. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just for clarification, the current CAO has all the powers that the former CAO had. And so that's a good point that you made. You know, the council unanimously hired the CAO, and the CAO has been looking at filling other positions, but okay, no other questions.
Oh, sorry. And just to clarify that policy is not new to this council. That policy has been in place from the previous council and the council before that the CAO has the authority to hire, and in fact is the only person that can hire the CFO. The CFO is not answerable currently to council.
Can I just add something here?
Go ahead, Councilor Ryder.
Karen mentioned that it would have been nice. I think that I would certainly agree with that, and that it is not the fault or sticking point with the old procedures bylaw, but that it was an oversight in the extreme that 2 councillors sitting at this table were not given an opportunity to meet with the CFO before he was hired.
Okay, I'll respond to that since you're pointing out two counselors. That would be Counselor Broughton and myself.
No, I was talking about Neville and myself.
Neville
We
and
did
you.
not have
You
an
did not
opportunity.
have-
We
right.
did not have an opportunity.
Right.
And we're not afforded.
And I'll repeat to everybody here that I've reached out numerous times. As a matter of fact, I've had community members say, how can we get you communicating better with counselors at this table? And these community members said, we just need to sit you down and talk and get you guys to talk. I said, I'm available. And this has even been in the last 4 days. Could not get a meeting. I reached out 4 times to Counselor Reuter. And I confirmed that with Counselor Abbott. And I said 2 of those last times, and the 4th request was, I'll meet you down at this council chamber. Again, I'm sounding like I'm spouting off, but it's very frustrating, I think, for the whole community and also for counselors.
Point of order, speech making again.
And we don't need the two of you to go back and he said, she said again, because I know Marcus wants to start talking.
Well, sorry, I was just answering to Counselor Reuter.
I would suggest that both of you just leave this.
Okay, let's move on. All right, we'll move to delegations. There's none. Adoption of the minutes for the prior meetings, 7.1. Recommendation is that the minutes for January 17th, 2023 council meeting are adopted as circulated. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion.
I want them to, I'd like to see them deferred to the next meeting. I have not had time to read them, and you got them yesterday.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Reuter.
I would echo that. I would just point out, since they are on the record here, and everyone can see them, that under 7.2 is a grotesque mischaracterization of the course of events as to that meeting. The presentation is made as though the mayor was unaware of the fact that 2 councillors couldn't attend and went ahead with the meeting anyway, and is trying to present it as though councillors Abbott and myself simply chose not to attend. That is not the case. The mayor was made aware repeatedly in advance of this meeting. I believe, I know from myself, and I believe from Councillor Abbott, that we would be unable to attend and chose to go ahead with the meeting anyway, despite that. So this is a mischaracterization, and I would term this as spin in 7.2.
The point of information,
Yes.
if it's a tabling motion, it's not a debatable motion. If it was a tabling motion from Councillor Abbott, which I believe it was, then it's not open for debate.
Okay, all right, we'll defer these to the next meeting.
Question to table.
Question table, yeah,
Table, yeah.
okay. Motion or question?
Table until the next.
Okay, second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, next item is item 7.2, special council meeting called for January 13th. This meeting was called to order at 3 p.m. The mayor waited 15 minutes, time allowed for a quorum to convene. As 2 councilors were absent at 3:15, the meeting could not proceed as no quorum was present. So that's more for information. Okay,
Move receipt. Okay.
receipt, okay, second,
Sure.
all in favor?
What are we voting on here?
Motion carried.
Receiving something.
Receipt of the,
Okay,
Subject to my prior comments on that.
okay, on to item business arising from minutes. No business,
Sorry,
or is there any business, sorry, arising from minutes?
sorry, did I miss something? Page 17, special meeting minutes, do we call those?
that's what we just dealt with.
Okay, but I'm looking at page 17, it's not what the mayor just read out. Page 17, it says special council meeting, and it lists councillors Abbott and Reuter as regrets, which means we did inform that we weren't coming. which is accurate. That's not what the mayor just.
I just read the agenda,
Okay,
the comments in the agenda.
I'm looking at, so in the attachment, the minutes.
I didn't read the minutes. I read the comments in the agenda. And we've already voted on that, so to receive them. Okay, business arising from minutes.
Sorry, I mean, can we have the reconsideration? You've got two things going on here. I'm looking at the minutes that read in the package on page 17, and in the agenda it says something else, and I voted to receive it, which implies I accepted it. I was looking at something that says, I had informed you, it says regrets, Councillor Abbott and Councillor Reuter. That's what I thought you were referring to.
We were referring to receive those minutes. Or actually, there was no meeting,
So the,
right? There was no quorum present, so we're just receiving that.
okay,
Okay. All right, business arising from minutes. Was there any business?
Well, with respect to the chair, the dilemma is you don't have minutes now that are before you because you tabled.
Right.
okay.
Fair enough.
Business arising from.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, unfinished business. Item 253, highway maintenance follow-up, a report will be issued. Okay. Any comments on that? Oh, okay. December 20th, speculation vacancy tax. There's been no follow-up from the mayor on that. Yeah, so that'll be continue as unfinished business.
Sir, can I say something? here?
Yes.
This item has come up repeatedly, and we haven't gotten anything yet. When can we expect something from the mayor on this matter?
Well, there's been a lot going on, Councillor Reuter, so I would welcome your assistance on this, and perhaps you can look into identifying how many residents are affected by this and any other information. I'll reach out to the staff on the speculation and vacancy tax, try to get information, but I could certainly use your help. So if you would like to participate in that, I'm more than willing to.
I think where we left it is that you were going to contact the Ministry of Finance.
That's correct. And as I said, we've had a lot on our plate. There's been priorities here in the village, so I have not completed that task.
Have you begun it?
So that has not been started. So
I'd like to
I'm
ask
asking
you
you if you could help me out on that, because there's some information there with residents that I'd like to know are affected by this, but any other area that you can help me, I would appreciate that.
Okay, let me say to this, that this is something we've asked you repeatedly to do. I would ask you to do that.
And I've already
Can I finish speaking? Thank you. Okay. I would ask you to get going on this and contact the Ministry of Finance. I think you know full well that in other areas where I've tried to contact ministries, that I have been shut down. And the answer I've received is, we've spoken with your mayor about this, go talk to him. So that's why I'm asking you to pursue this with the Ministry of Finance as a first step, as we have decided multiple times. And then I'm happy to work with you on it once we have something from the Ministry of Finance and your discussions with it.
Okay, I'm glad you commented on that. Just for way of background, Marcus, when he hasn't been satisfied with something, he's gone and broken protocol.
Okay, point of
And
order.
point of reach line.
How many times do we get to do this to?
I'm just asking you to follow up.
I'm just rebutting.
A specific question on
Orders of the day.
unfinished business.
Okay, so it's unfinished. I said it remains unfinished.
And it has-
I'm just asking you to please to move forward on. That's all.
Okay,
Thank you.
good enough. And I've
Let's
asked you
move on.
if you would like to help out on identifying other residents.
To that effect, or no? Okay.
Okay,
Next item. First Nations. I've been in contact with the culture and language people with Squamish Nation, and I'm still waiting on their response. I've got a contact there, and I've made calls as recently as today, and hope to get that tidied up for the next meeting, which is actually next week. So
okay,
reporting out then. Okay.
okay. Item number 261, pesticide bylaw.
We have dealt with
That one should have been struck last week.
All right, good enough. Okay, correspondence on the surcharge. Sorry, who was
11.
corresponding 9/11 sweet charge?
Yeah, it wasn't.
That's going back to the previous meeting.
Yeah, I have responded to one. I'll look into that. I responded to one resident about sweet
I
surcharge.
think that's the same one.
So, okay.
Yeah.
That's done then.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll move on to reports. And the first item on that is the mayor's report. I did publish a message on Friday. And I'll just elaborate on that for those of you that did not read that. The purpose of the message of this page is to keep you updated as much as possible on the key aspects of the governance of the village. In particular, I'll highlight the issues we are addressing, as well as providing progress reports on various projects and undertakings being done on your behalf. There are many aspects of the functioning of the village that we are addressing on an urgent basis. Some of those items are included in this agenda. These include banking, financial controls, IT security, and addressing the need to plan for a by-election. We're also managing an administrative transition that involves establishing baseline requirements for all key features of the village administration. So expectations also have to be managed during this period of transition. And I'll just comment that as you can see, how we flowed through this agenda, there is still a lot more work to be done, and we are working together in a positive manner, and a new addition with Mr. Miller has been a prime example of that. Some of the practices have developed are not all necessarily efficient. For this reason, reliance has to be placed first on all the statutory instruments such as the legislation and bylaws that govern our actions. Additionally, contracts, terms governing key services to the village are also under review. Where there are gaps, these are beginning to be addressed. In particular, finance, banking, IT have been given priority consideration. So with that, I will move in the respective time. I'm going to move to the acting CAO 10.2. And Anthony, if you can give us just a little bit of a update.
Well, given the discussion at the council through the chair, I don't want to say too much other than just to comment on the logistic issues in terms of getting back to people, getting information out on time. And as I've just reported, it's now been about a month. I still have a dysfunctional computer. The hard drive is broken on it. I don't have a telephone. There are files in my office that appear to have been there for about 5 years. There's no one yet able to help me with that. And so I've been struggling with using a laptop that's barely functional. We've had, I don't know how many IT calls to try and get that sorted out. So it's been quite the struggle, given what I'm used to in the past in terms of a functional office. And to say that mine's functional is putting it to a higher standard. It's dysfunctional. And I'm trying to address that and to respond as best I can to all of the email. I think there are about 3,000 emails that have been unresponded to. And I don't have the facility at the current time to manage all of that in addition to the others. So that's just to give a sense of the logistics that I'm contending with. And the other thing is that we're dealing with what, in my view, have been emergent situations where you had a CFO leaving and the need to address issues of financial security, making sure that there are no large gaps in the process between that person leaving and someone assuming the functions, and that has been accomplished. And we're starting to look at how best the administration can be organized so that we have persons in roles who have defined roles under the community charter, and that now can speak to the question of a municipal clerk. Most municipalities have a person called a municipal clerk. That's pretty standard practice. We haven't had that standard practice here in Lions Bay. what has happened is the former CEO configuration, all of the powers of a CFO and of a corporate officer were centered in the CAO, who then passed those out. And part of the function then went to referred to as a community coordinator. So in addressing that, just by way of information, for those who've already asked the question about the municipal clerk position, prior to that, there was a municipal coordinator position that was advertised. And I have seen applications dating back to the beginning of October that I've accessed now that haven't been acknowledged or responded to. So I have gone through all of those in addition to the applications we have now also received for the current posted position. And we're in the process of interviewing candidates for that. And I hope to have a decision made by the end of the week in that regard. So those are the key features that hopefully will address some of the concerns about delay of information and so on. And it seems to me that the information I'm supplying highlights some of the issues. And it may not be a great comfort to people around this table to know what those issues are. But I believe it's my responsibility to identify those and have them addressed in the best interest of the village. And I will continue to do that. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for that, Mr. Tobin. I know we're all behind you and supporting you on these efforts, so thank you. Councillor Abbott.
Is this where we're going to discuss the municipal clerk, or is that still an added agenda?
That's at the end, the new business.
Okay. Tony, to this laptop, when the previous CEO left, myself and Councillor Reuter came and met with him to do some sort of handover the best we could. I remember clearly pointing at his desk. There was a laptop on there, and I know it well because in the previous council, I raised the issue of why he needed a $3,500 laptop when I just bought this fine beast for less than 1,000. So I do know the laptop well. Are you telling me that laptop doesn't function? It's barely 2 years old.
I'm not talking about the functionality of. I'm talking about
You said the hard drive was fried?
Yeah.
There's a desktop that's not functional. I had to wait 2 weeks or so before I could get part functionality on the laptop. All of the email addresses had to be reconfigured. We had a meeting with the IT people about that. There are issues about security, which I won't go into here, which haven't been fully addressed yet with email addresses.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure you had the very expensive laptop and it does still function.
I don't know whether it's an expensive one. I can tell you it's the
Okay.
If you're asking me about the computer itself, I can tell you I've had about 6 or 8 laptop computers, and this is the worst I've had. So whoever bought it didn't make a very good investment. That's all I can say.
And I need to have one other question, and I know we're going to talk about the municipal clerk later, but just something you said about this position being normal in most communities. Do you know of any other communities in Metro that are our size, that have municipal clerks and municipal coordinators? The likes of Bowen or Anwell or
I haven't
Bakara?
looked at the question of municipal coordinators.
How many of them have municipal clerks? I don't think any of them do, to be honest.
Well, they do. North District of North Vancouver.
No. Communities of our size. There's 4 small communities in Vancouver. Belcarra, Lions Bay, Anwell, and Bowen, considered the 4 small communities. My question was, do any of them have municipal clerks? As you said, it's the norm.
It is the norm.
In small communities.
I didn't say that.
Okay, that's fine.
You're qualifying what I said.
No, I'm just trying to clarify what you said. That's
Are you really? Okay, fine.
okay.
Councillor Brown.
To the matter of the computer, I attended the office yesterday with the goal of assisting in getting the computers operational. And we met with Theta Sky, who came in and picked up the computer and analyzed it and determined that the hard drive was gone. and then said, well, I'll take it back to the shop and maybe be back in a week, sort of thing. The challenge there is that the CAO's telephone works through the computer. So he has no functional telephone on his desk. And a week ago, we requested his cellular phone, and it had not yet been returned, and it was returned today. So it's been a challenge to collect together the technology and to get the support required. And I think the CAO has done quite an astounding job considering, but hopefully we will get the level of support that's required. The positions that my understanding of the position that's currently.
I think we're going to talk about it. The new business, is that the position?
Okay.
Addition.
We'll defer to
So, okay.
I just want to reemphasize
one last,
that there are three items that this council really needs to focus on: projects, budget, and staffing. And I think we need to just keep, if the discussion is not relevant to those, I think we need to defer it and get on with the business of this community.
Okay. Councillor Reuter.
Yeah, I mean, as to the computer, I'm surprised that it's not functional, or the phone. I mean, the previous CEO seemed to kind of be quite happy with that, with his fairly new computer, I would hope. But let me just, if I may, circle back to something that the mayor was saying under the what was it, the mayor's report. This was, of course, a reiteration of the village update piece. And I would just point out that there were various things disclosed in that piece and in previous pieces that are reporting out of in-camera information to the public that haven't been authorized by council. So I would caution the mayor to follow procedure and get an agreement of council before he releases information out of closed.
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Tobin?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Although I invite both councillors to come to my office and take a look for themselves.
That would be great. I know you've invited me, and I've certainly seen the challenges that you've had, and look, really appreciate everything you're doing for this village.
Okay.
Very much so. So thank you. Mr. Miller, next item on the agenda is the acting CFO, and we've got a verbal report. So if you can just maybe give us some background on your first couple of weeks, and talk a little bit to perhaps controls, financial controls, and perhaps the budgeting process.
Personal background.
And why don't you start by just giving us a little background on yourself, so that we learn a little bit more about you.
Sure. Okay. I'm a CPA, used to be a CA, they changed it. CBV, which is Chartered Business Valuator. My background is finance and accounting and auditing. So I've been the CFO and vice president of numerous public companies. Recently, for the last 20 years, the managing partner of a large CA firm in Vancouver. Recently retired in May. I've worked with Ken Berry. It's got to be 25 years in his public companies as the auditor, so I've gotten to know him very well. So as far as this place goes, I've been engaged basically to fill a hole. I talked to Ken probably a month, 2 months ago, knowing that there might be a hole, and would I be willing to come in and help out for two reasons. One is to fill the role of a CFO, and second, to look at what does a community this size need in the finance department. And that's what I'm spending a bit of time for. So the last 2.5 weeks, I've gotten to know the staff in the office, including Mr. Jacker, quite well. I found them very cordial and very cooperative and very competent. So the staff is pretty good, and not pretty good, it's very good. And what I have noticed, what we're going through right now is the budgeting process and the audit process. The audit process, I can't say too much on because we're just getting in the middle of it. The budgeting process, my only I guess, criticism is why we're talking about a budgeting today for the year 2023. So we're probably 5 months late. Because a typical budgeting process is you're approving expenditures in your plan for the year 2023. Well, we're in 2023. By the time we get the budget approved, it'll be February or March. So my criticism there is you'll have a quarter of really unapproved expenditures and activity. So that's a bit of a criticism of the budgeting process. You do have what's called a 5-year plan. That's a rolling 5-year plan, and that just gets updated. That's a requirement by the province, but it's not a substitute for a budget. The budget is approved by council, and when we do the presentation to the council, it's about spending significant amounts of money, and it's your plan for the year. The only other one I'm going to strongly advise, there is a hole in the banking. There's currently one person is allowed to prepare the checks and sign the checks. And think in terms of today's world, it's not just writing checks. The preparation of a check is maybe 5% of your payments. Everything is done online, and it's very hard to control that. In our world, you have to have a segregation of duties. And what that comes down to is the person who records transactions is separate from the person or group who authorizes it, is separate from the person who is the custodian or the control over the asset. Today, you have one person, and believe it, I think the world of her. I think she's very competent, but it's a very dangerous place to see. In the public sector, it's not allowed, and it really shouldn't be allowed here. It's not just from a fraud perspective; it's from a stakes perspective. What if something happens? The mayor is also allowed to sign, but the banking is set up for you really only need one signature. It should always be two. And my recommendation there is the people preparing the checks, that's basically my department, do not sign checks. Remember, signing check is pushing a button. It's that simple. There's authentications. If you've ever done online banking, there's a lot of processes. The person signing the check should be at least the CAO and any council member. Right, because first of all, it does a lot for them. It gets them involved in what's going on in the community because you're signing checks or you're going online and you're approving the payment, but it's a very strong control. So that control really has to be put in place. The bank is willing to change anything we want with a council resolution. So what I'm just really asking is council make a resolution, because you're in a very dangerous area when you don't have those controls over check signing. All the other record keeping is pretty good. Budgeting process is pretty good. It's just late.
Okay, is there any questions for Mr. Miller? Councilors, any questions? Mr. Councilor Abbott?
We have a resolution on you have a signing authority later, don't we?
We do, yes.
Well, I guess we could have left it to that. I'll comment there when we get to that point.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for CFO Miller? No? Okay, we'll move on to item number 10.4, committee reports. 10.4.1 Finance Committee. That's myself as a chair, so I'll just report out. Committee enacting CFO for the committee enacting CFO. Much of this will review what Mr. Miller has mentioned, the recommendations from the committee that the apparent banking vulnerability situation be addressed by ensuring, number one, that the bank has instructions that no check or electronic transfer should be processed unless it has two signatures or electronic signatures. Number two, that the authorized signatures or electronic signatures be those of only the chief administration officer and an elected official or two elected officials of the municipality of Lions Bay. Number three, that a limit be placed on the amount of any check or transfer. And number four, any amount above the limit would require additional written authorization from the chief administration officer or the mayor or acting mayor for such transaction in that order. That resolution in the Finance Committee was carried unanimously. Second recommendation was that apparent vulnerabilities in the village banking procedures be addressed immediately on an urgent basis to ensure that the principles of separation of the functions of authorization, recording, and control are met. And again, that was carried unanimously. Third item was a recommendation that we apply banking controls to all the village bank accounts. And still not clear how many bank accounts there are. So the recommendation was to apply them to all the bank accounts. Number 4 was a recommendation that the CFO and the village implement best practices treasury management for municipal regulations to maximize the return on the village's $5.8 million in one account. As it currently stands, the village is receiving minimum interest return on that. So those are the recommendations from the Finance Committee. And do we need a motion to receive those?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Okay, next item is the Beach Committee and Councillors Abbott and Broughton co-chairing that committee. Would you like to comment or do you have a report?
Yes.
Was the report? If I can find the report. What page was it on?
Unfortunately, it doesn't have a page number. I would
Yeah,
look to it.
Beach Park was called the Revitalization Committee, but it's now currently called the Lions Bay Beach Park Advisory Committee. We'll be meeting tomorrow night and we'll be determining, confirming our terms of reference and
Okay,
deciding how to move forward.
Okay,
I remember why there's no report. The report's in the closed meeting. Reports in the closed meeting because we had those various contract documents that I was asking us to release. I need to open so we can use them in the Beach Park Committee. So that's why it's all in the.
okay,
That's all we can
okay,
do.
right. So we did just by way of background, we never got to that item in the closed.
We forgot to that item, yes. I
Yeah.
was wondering why.
Okay, just general comments in addition to Councillor Broughton.
No, I think, I think it's going well. I think we've had a good 2 months through Christmas. Glad to see the committee struck, a smaller group that are going to be sort of lean and more flexible and get things going. And tomorrow night will be the first, as Michael said, the first meeting. And there'll be a Have Your Say coming soon. One of the things we'll discuss tomorrow night, exactly what that looks like and when it happens. And I think there's been some very valuable contributions that I think have changed the vision or the aesthetics of what was proposed previously. That all the committee thinks very positively about it. I think we're going the right way. It's more Lions Bay, it's more natural is the plan. And we'll obviously have to test that with the public and Have Your Say. I mean, a little bit of work to get there, but be fairly close.
Okay, thank you for that report. And I know there's been a lot of excitement around the beach development and activity, and both two councillors, Broughton and Abbott, have led that way, along with the 18 residents in the working committee. And there's just been nothing but positive feedback. So really pleased to hear that's going along well. Looking forward to the development there.
To say they're moving ahead just beautifully, and the Have Your Say is drafted, and we're going to be discussing that tomorrow evening. So I'm very excited about prospects that they're targeting. They had, as mentioned in the village update, the week of February 6th, which is next week, to look at getting the Have Your Say out and broadening the input from the community. But the input from the community so far has been really significant. So
all right,
we're moving.
Okay, thank you for that update.
Question: the Have Your Say will come before council? What's the plan there?
Yeah, so typically they do.
Yeah.
They always have come before council. We were hoping to put it to this council, but I don't feel it's quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And the committee probably should need to sit and
We have the meeting scheduled for February 7th.
for tomorrow, and then we have the February the 7th council meeting,
Right,
which we could hopefully present it to council.
you had mentioned February 6th.
The week of February 6th.
I see. Okay.
Was the
I'm trying to soft
No,
down
made.
that commitment. That is the target.
Oh, okay. So that's a target, but it will.
target
Okay.
date.
We'd expect to be further ahead. We expected to have something tonight, but we're not. We need to get to this group first.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, next item, 10.4.3 Metro Vancouver committees. During the last couple of months, I've had the opportunity to attend TransLink, the Metro and Climate Action Committee meetings. While the Metro mayors are there to work for the greater good of the region, I've taken every opportunity to advocate for Lions Bay whenever possible. These meetings have been primarily introductory in nature. The meetings have been a great place to network with the other mayors of the Metro Vancouver region in terms of climate action. I've highlighted Lions Bay as a blank canvas and would love to participate in some of the leading edge pilot projects that are being offered, the air quality measuring devices, biorock shoreline work, and hydrothermal processing, sewage, biofuels, and so on. So there's some of these pilot projects that I think I definitely would encourage and have spoken up for. The Metro board meetings have included extensive closed meeting sessions dealing primarily with legal issues surrounding disclosure and of confidential information. During the TransLink meetings, I've highlighted the need for consistent and regular bus service to the rural communities, the potential of a sea to sky service to Squamish, the fact that we have 3,000 or approximately 3,000 vehicles per day travel through our community, the microbus on demand service, that's something West Van's advocating for as well, and the ever-growing tourists to Lions Bay requiring additional bus service, but regular bus service. Some of the residents have commented and asked me to ask about that, so I've spoken up on that behalf.
So sorry, 3,000 vehicle trips per day?
That's what the recorded that I've been heard, and I
Thought it was far in excess of that.
no,
Yeah.
you could be right. Could be right. It
Sounds like it.
nevertheless, it's a lot.
Yeah.
What I've noticed in other Metro and TransLink or with other Metro and TransLink mayors is that they've got extensive staffing support. And this is not a surprise. The smaller communities such as Bowen Island, Belcarra, and Anmore, obviously we can leverage off this staff and staffing services from the other communities. The mayors of and the Metro, I guess the staff have encouraged us to reach out whenever we need things. So that's something that we can leverage off, and I'll be speaking more with Mr. Tobin about that. So I'm working hard to forge strong relationships with the other small towns, as I mentioned, Anmore, Bowen Island, Belcarra, who have dealt with similar issues as Lions Bay and are experienced, and they're more than open to pass on their experience, and they've offered to come out and meet with Mr. Tobin and others and councillors just to convey their their experience. So it's been a good process, still early, but have enjoyed that. So. With that, we'll move to item number 11, and those are the resolutions. So item 11.1, proposed banking signing authority. And the recommendation is that 2 authorized signatures are always required for all financial transactions on behalf of the Village of Lions Bay, for all paper checks and also for all electronic transfers where the latter is feasible and appropriate in the view of the Chief Financial Officer, and that signing authorities for the bank include and are limited to the mayor, any councillor, the chief administration officer, and the chief financial officer, and that a copy of this resolution be provided to the bank manager of the village's bank by the chief financial officer at the earliest opportunity, having consideration for the timing of any relevant financial and payment circumstances or obligations of the village. So I would call a motion or, okay, second. Okay, discussion.
Yeah, so seconded to ask the question. So this is a reconsideration of the previous resolution from the closed meeting?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
No, because there is no, if you look at the procedure bylaw, closed meetings are not covered.
Closed meetings are not covered by the procedures bylaw.
No.
So there's no law. Okay.
And this has been brought up in other in other contexts already before you.
In this meeting.
In closed.
No, in open by way of the recommendations of the finance committee that were made open and reviewed and adopted. And it's parallel of those
I
recommendations.
think that was 10.4.1. I read out the 4 recommendations.
Yeah, so that before you properly, if that's the question.
So the motion is to shore up our financial controls.
Okay, the signatory resolution was in a closed meeting. And now it sounds to me like we're asking for a reconsideration. I thought the reconsideration should be in the same meeting, in the same form. But you're saying it's not a reconsideration because the closed meeting didn't exist for the procedures bylaw, doesn't mention it?
No, I'm saying that this is before you properly. It may well have been dealt with in another forum, but it's come through to you now via the finance committee.
Finance committee met this afternoon at 4 p.m. And the recommendations are as read, and the previous 10.4.1 portion of the agenda. Okay, do we have another, Councillor Abbott, are you complete? We can come back to you. We're going to go around the table twice. We've got a motion on the table. So we each get a chance to speak to that motion twice, and then we'll call a question.
Okay, well, let me just finish speaking to the motion.
You've got 5 minutes to speak to the motion. We go around the table, and then we come around a second time.
Yeah,
and then we call it.
I'll be honest, I'm struggling to keep all this in front of me. There's a lot of stuff read there. Where am I reading this? Can we just give me a page number?
Page 4.
We're on 11.1, signing authority.
That's right.
Okay, but where am I seeing what we're asking to change? Where is the resolution that says about what signatures are doing what?
You know what might be a good CFO Miller. Can you help us out with this recommendation? Is this something that will shore up our financial controls as you see them right now?
I'm sure the answer is yes. I'm sure the answer is yes. Previous resolution was well spelled out, and there were some minutes about it of what we're actually approving, who's signing and who's not signing, and what we're changing. And I'm asking to see that somewhere here to approve a resolution that doesn't really give me the details. And they're not here.
Details.
Yes, Councillor Broughton.
I'm sorry, details. This is laying out a resolution as to how to proceed as a corporation in terms of best financial practices. The fact that this was not dealt with, in my mind, appropriately over 2 weeks ago, in a previous meeting, shouldn't be holding this up. We have $5.8 million in a single bank account. Operating, I'm estimating, would be in the $1 million. If we had $1 million in our operation account, that would leave $4.8 million to be properly invested. The bank itself identified that we were losing perhaps 2.2% on the investment, which is approximately $100,000 a year.
Sorry,
excuse me.
Sorry,
unless
talking on the point of signing signatures. What's that got to do with it?
I'm sorry, if you don't understand that the signatures are controlling the money, I can't help you.
You're suggesting that someone's going to abscond with our $5.8 million? All right, carry on.
Excuse me.
You're talking about interest rates.
Excuse me, through the chair. Could I have?
Yeah, you've got the floor. Thank you. A couple more minutes.
Thank you. We have we have something in the neighborhood of 4.5 to $5 million, which is underinvested, costing our community in the neighborhood of $100,000 a year of lost opportunity and income, which is approximately $8,000 a month, $2,000 a week. Since this has been delayed, we've lost over $4,000 in possible income. And we're talking about the process of whether or not it should be before this council. And we've been informed that in fact, it should be before this council properly and responsibly. I think we all ran on a platform of fiscal responsibility, and I cannot call it fiscally responsible to delay not putting proper controls in place. If we're saying that somehow Lions Bay is special and shouldn't have the controls that everywhere else does, I beg to differ. So we have a serious issue here that in fact, as soon as it was identified, a finance committee was immediately formed. The finance committee looked at the problem, identified a solution, and called the meeting to address the problem. And the problem still has not been addressed, and that is a big problem. So I just have to say that in the best interest of the village of Lions Bay, we've got to get our signatories in place so that the funds that we have are not at risk, but that they're properly invested. And if we're not personalizing this, we're talking about best practice. And there's no names here.
All right, Councillor Broughton, thank you for that.
Okay.
Councillor Reuter.
Apologize.
Yeah, we've heard this many times before. We've discussed it in closed. There was a pretty robust discussion as to this. I think it should have reappeared in closed. I would suggest also that there's more that could be said, but I think it should be taken up in closed. I will not be voting in favor of this at this time.
Okay, I guess it's my turn to speak. This is one of those matters that, I think a philosophy of items in closed or in open session. I am for open discussion as much as possible. When it comes to financial controls, this is not a personal matter. This is a fiscal responsibility. And all of us councillors, I believe, had fiscal responsibility as one of the highlights of our platforms. This is just non-negotiable in my opinion, and it needed to be addressed 2 weeks ago. It's being addressed now, and it was addressed openly in the Finance Committee at 4 p.m. this afternoon. So I'm going to ask the CFO to comment on this request.
So a couple of things. I mean, Neville just brought up is how is this different from what we talked about in the finance meeting? The wording is different, but it's the exact same. The resolution at 4 o'clock that was brought up, it was just a little more detail, but the net effect is still the exact same thing. But I still think you're in a very dangerous area when one person can prepare a check and sign a check and don't think in terms of fraud, just think in terms of accident and life happens. You have payroll to take care of.
Okay, we'll go around the room the second time with the councillors. Councillor Abbott.
Okay. I'm looking for the details of those discussions. It's not here. So Michael's talking about something happened in our finance committee. None of the backup stuff isn't here. That's the point I was making earlier.
I read 10.4.1, which was the meeting at 4 p.m. and I read those 4 items of recommendations.
It would be nice to have them in front of us. The point is, well, everyone would like to see them, like be part of the meeting. As to this thing that we own, one signature on a check, withdraw money from our account, we know it's not accurate. We know it's not accurate because I was challenged to phone the bank manager myself, and I did. And it's described in your other reports as there was a keying error. You cannot, every single check that has left this village has been signed by 2 people. So I've heard it too many times because there's no risk there. In my mind, there's no risk there. I am concerned about who the signing authorities are. And we're not talking about it being personal people's capabilities. I would like to understand how the village accountant does her job as you described when electronic transfers, that she is not one of the people that has signing authority. We have a very, very small department. We have very few people in that department, not like another big municipality. I'm concerned from what I've heard before on previous councils and how we operated from the previous CFO, that the accountant may not be able to do the functions she's currently doing without having the signing authority.
You're talking
So-
bookkeeper.
I'm talking about the bookkeeper.
Ask our CFO, who is right next to you, that question, because perhaps he can help you out to understand this financial controls and the necessity of this. Mr. Miller.
Sure. You brought up a couple points. First, it's every organization, unless you're the owner, has typically, any big organization, doesn't matter the magnitude of checks, has 2 signatures. They could be automatic signatures, but the person is sitting on a computer gave authorization, or you have the controls in place that if you see a check from IBM, for example, it's the president of IBM doesn't sign the check, but they've got the controls in place. It's the same thing.
But I think
We don't have that here.
I think we all agree we need 2 signatures, and we do have 2 signatures on every check.
But you don't have to have 2 signatures on every check. And you know, I don't think you do.
The bank said it was a keying error when they made a change before. Oops, sorry, we'll fix it quickly. There is no issue with how many signatures we have in a check.
I agree.
So let's talk about the rest of the issue. I'm concerned about our bookkeeper, village accountant, I thought we used to call it before, I think that's a more accurate title, is able to do her job if she doesn't have this authority. Are you sure that is not the case?
You lost me. The account.
Are you removing the authority of the accountant to do the electronic?
He wants to leave the bookkeeper with the authority to write checks on a $5.8 million account.
Signed by someone else. There's always 2 signatures on the check.
Can I make a
But I'm more
suggestion?
concerned about the stuff she does electronically.
Mr. Miller, how would you answer that question?
Well, I mean, electronic, it makes it too easy to make mistakes. You know, if someone like the accountant writes a check and then she also signs it or approves the payment, you can add a 0 to it. It doesn't have to be intentional.
Okay, let's talk about electronic transfers. She's sitting at her computer doing all these electronic transfers. When you're saying that she should not be able to do that on her own, you're going to have to go across there and push the button.
So here's the process. She says that the payroll is ready to be sent, or a check is a payment to Simco, I'm going to call it, for $30,000 needs to be made. Can you please approve it? So I go on my phone or my computer, I dial in, I approve it, and a counselor would also go in and approve it. That's a normal practice, and it's some companies it's the law. A public company, it's the law, it has to be done. Owner managed business, it's not because of the owner. But it's 99.9% of the time you need 2 signatures on a check.
May I speak here?
Okay, Councillor Reuter?
Yeah, I'll defer to Councillor.
Okay.
That was.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate the information you're bringing, Ron. From what you said, I'm guessing your experience is mostly in the private sector.
No, public.
No, public and private. Okay.
Not government though.
Okay, yeah, and so things may work a little differently here. Here's my suggestion is that we ask the, did you want to jump in here? No?
No,
Okay.
Continue on,
Yeah,
Councillor Reuter.
okay. That we perhaps hear from the bookkeeper as to how this kind of decision would affect her ability to do her job on behalf of the municipality. And that we might also reach out to our auditors for some information on what we're proposing here. And as to what their suggestion and input would be on this. I mean, they've been with us for years. And that might be a wise undertaking before we move any further.
Mr. Miller, can you comment on that?
Well, I mean, it's.
Or Mr. Tobin, you're both.
I defer that.
and
Sorry,
there's
just before we come back to you, Councillor Broughton.
There's nothing wrong with that, reaching out to the auditor. That's what I did for 30 years. And people would ask me the same questions. And we would come in and say, we'd write a letter. I haven't seen a letter here, although I know there is letters here to council that say, here's your controls. I don't know if you've ever gone over it, because I'm meeting with the auditor this week, basically, to go over it. There's nothing wrong with that, asking the auditor that, but in the auditing and accounting world, it's a basic tenet, is you have to have separation of duties. And it's not just from a financial control, you also find out what's going on in what checks are being paid out. It's a great way, it's a great control to find out, are you meeting budget, what's going on here? But I've rarely seen, other than a small private companies, that there's one signature on a check,
Which we don't have, just to be clear, right?
which you do have.
No, we don't have.
You
No.
do have.
No, we don't.
You do, by practice, I think, well, I won't say it, but I know you do have it.
Okay.
Because you have what's called super signing authority.
Okay, Councillor Broughton.
So, yeah, so apparently we have the capacity for one person to sign a check, and checks are are unlimited. But another point that was made is that about 95% or 90% of transactions, when we're talking about checks, we're actually talking about a means of financial transaction, of moving money. And many of our payments are made by direct payment. And the direct payment, to my understanding, is with one signature. And that signature is a digital signature, but it's one signature. The bank limitation on that is $49,990 a day. So that's the limitation on that. On the checks, the limitation is unlimited. Do I think that our staff are running around, cashing $1 million checks? No. Do I believe that the municipality, the Village of Lions Bay, deserves to have an acceptable standard of protection for our funds? Absolutely. And we are talking to a top auditor in British Columbia here, who very accomplished auditor, who is telling us what standard practice is, and who has been working in the office with the person who you wanted to consult with. And I'm saying this is standard practice. You wouldn't run your own personal finances this way. Why would you suggest that the Village of Lions Bay run their finances this way? So I just cannot support.
Okay, thank you.
Just a point of information.
Yes.
Mary, as things stand, my latest understanding of the situation is we now have just one person who's been referred to, who's working under the CFO, who has signing authority, and you as the mayor have signing authority. As far as I know, there are there's the other person who had signing authority with the former CFO and the former CAO. It is not clear to me that they have been taken off as signing authorities. I have signing authority by virtue of my contract with the village, but that still hasn't been implemented because there hasn't been a proper resolution filed with the village's bank to confirm any of these things, either to take the persons who are on, who should not be on, off, nor to assign new signing authorities. So the matter is not a matter of debate and nicety and attending to and being reflective of a staff person's responses. As the CFO has rightly pointed out, it's a larger issue than that. And it's a question of, do you really want to take any kind of risk with those kinds of funds? And my responsibility, and so as the CFO, is to urge that we have the proper financial controls in place. And it's not, and meeting with the bank, as I did with Medberry, there were some real concerns about the process, about who was signing authority. It was a surprise to me to see there are persons who were on there who ought not to have been on there, in my view. And what we're asking for here, and maybe it could be more specific in terms of the names. It says any councillor. Maybe the bank will need the names of all the councillors. It will need the name of the mayor, the name of the CAO, and the CFO. So perhaps the motion could be amended to include those specificities. But beyond that, it seems to me that were this not to pass, you're really exposing the village to considerable liability for reasons which are not, in my view, sustainable.
Okay.
With the greatest of respect to all concerned.
Okay, we'll go around the table one last time before we call the question. Councillor Abbott.
Okay, just to be clear here, no one's suggesting we don't clean up people that are still haven't been taken off the register because they're no longer employed, or expand the number of people that can sign. That's not the issue. We need to do that. Everyone wants that done. That's obvious, right? My concern is removing the village accountant. So we can add the village accountant back on as one of the signatories for now. So I'm glad to hear, Ron, that you're actually meeting with the auditor. I asked weeks ago, has anyone asked the auditor about any of these things? No one has.
No, I have. To correct you, I have.
Okay.
And I asked the auditor to reach out to the CAO and to the CFO, and he did not do that.
Okay.
And the auditor, and I reached out to the auditor over a month ago and asked him for some assistance, because in my experience with Mr. Miller, whenever we had a shortage of resources, I was able to reach out to the auditor and they would provide some contacts, and that I reached out to the BDO auditor. He did not come back with any help. And I also asked him to meet with these fellows.
So we've given the auditor all these concerns and he hasn't responded. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that when these concerns came up, I made you aware. I made all of the councillors aware.
I'm asking whether BDO is aware of all these issues the finance committee's come up with. They're busy doing an audit right now. I'm assuming we've alerted them to these concerns. That was my question. They're our auditors. Surely we've told them.
I talked to him in person, and this was, I don't know when, 4 days ago at least. And I said, I need you to phone the CFO immediately and the CAO. He still has not reached out. This is something that council can correct. This isn't a challenging thing here. This is financial controls, which are being recommended by the finance committee, CFO, the CAO, and the mayor.
Except through 4 years of audits done by BDO, seem very well respected. I'm no expert, seem very well respected. They always, pull us aside with no one else in the room, council only, probe us if there's anything we think might be concerned about, you'd like to raise. I'm asking.
Mr. Miller, what's the protocol on this?
Have we given this report to their auditors? Is the answer yes or no?
What's the protocol on this? With these banking controls, or should we be reaching out to the auditor to help correct these, or what's your take?
That's how we decide to run the community is our decision. The auditor, if we ask the auditor, they will come back and say, here's our recommendation. They don't always test for it. It depends on how they decide to run their audit is up to them. They may not be looking at internal controls. Typically, they don't look at internal controls. They look at just the output of everything, but how they run it is up to them. But like I said, I reached out to the auditor, so I'm meeting him this week.
Okay, that's great news. I'm pleased to hear that. But I'm assuming when you meet him, you're going to inform him of these concerns that have been raised. Shouldn't even do that.
Oh, of course, I will.
Okay, that's what I was asking for.
Yeah.
Has it happened? I was told, no, it hasn't happened. It doesn't need to happen. It does need to happen. You are going to do it. That's great.
No, and what I will ask him is, did they test for that? What are their concerns?
And could we get a report then from the auditors as to, and get their input on this here?
We will get the auditor's report when it's ready.
Yes.
Well,
and it seems to me that would be wise to have that before we lurch any further ahead.
Lurch?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's the implication in the room is that the auditors have not been doing their job, and that they.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And
sorry, it would be good. You'll be next, Councillor Broughton, and then I get the final say, and then we call a question.
Okay.
So you're recommending that we don't do anything?
No, that's not what I'm recommending.
Actually, can I just talk? We want to get this thing moving. I'm suggesting you amend it, add back the village accountant as one of the people who still has signature, because I'm concerned that she may not be able to do a job without it. And I'm concerned if it's only the CAO and the CFO and they're not here, I just, she needs to keep doing her job. So If we add that back in, later we find out it's not necessary and you want to bring that back, that she gets removed, you can deal with it then. But for now, you want to get this thing going, get the added signatures and clean up the ones that shouldn't be there, and change the reason. I'll put a friendly recommendation to make a change there, and then I'll be good with it.
So can I ask you?
Yeah.
Can you clarify who would be signing the checks? You're saying add these signatures, who would be signing the checks?
In my opinion, up to it's done now, the checks are signed by two people, whether electronic or not. One of them is typically being the accountant. And then the other one would be.
When you say the accountant, sorry, who are you referring? Is that the bookkeeper?
The village accountant.
I don't know, is there a title accountant or bookkeeper? I don't know. The same person.
Same person who prepares the check.
Yes. Same person that does the electronic data entry when she's trying to get electronic thing paid.
The person who creates the records.
Yeah.
Also signs the check.
Yes, one
So if you make a mistake in the records, I don't care about fraud. Let's forget the word fraud or intentional.
Okay.
It's mistakes.
Yes, that is my other concern about having all these councillors do it. We're now asking the councillors to be able to sign a check. Like we are able to find those mistakes or understand, whether this was budgeted or whatever. Yeah, come on.
The backup is there.
I know that, but I just don't know that the councillors are going to review the backup and delve into it. I don't think we understand having councillors as signatures in case we need another one. That's fine. And in previous councils, they all had signature authorities. Only the last one that changed one, by the way. That's not new. But if it's in the office on the staff, if there's only two of you that can do it, yourself and the CAO, and then I can just see a situation where things aren't getting done.
Okay, I've never seen that, but you have 4 people here, actually 5 people who can sign a check. Right, so that what typically happens is
You have two staff in the office that can sign the check.
but they're as long as, example, there's the CAO who is staff.
Yeah.
Myself, I could sign a check if nobody else is available.
That's the two.
If nobody else is available, then I can sign a check, but I'm still part of the recording department. You want a strong control, CAO signs, because he doesn't have he has no power or authority over record keeping or preparing the check, but he has a good idea what's going on. Then a counselor, usually the mayor, walks in and says, okay, I want to make sure that Anthony has signed the check. And then Ken does his own research because it's all backed up there. There's so many eyes that are looking at this. So you have very strong controls. But I've never seen where the person preparing the records who also signs the check. That's not normal.
Have you ever worked with a department as small as the one that you have now?
No, we're very small. Owner managers happens all the time. Because the only person who loses is the owner. They writes a check, it's by mistake to himself or herself, okay. But it's more about errors, not intentional mistakes.
Okay, Councillor Broughton.
So my friendly amendment is, I did say I'm making an amendment to add.
You're making an amendment to add.
Asking if we could make a resolution to add the village accountant, whichever the correct title is, to the list of signatories, so she doesn't get stripped of that. And this can be revisited another time. At least you can clean up the other signing issues.
Okay, you're making a motion to make an amendment.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, no second.
No second?
No
I'll
second.
second that. Yeah.
Okay, so discussion on that. Is this something that you would recommend? The amendment as stated?
Sorry, but there's 3 people who can sign. Correct?
According to what you
You know
suggest.
what you just suggested.
Well, what I,
Adding, so that the signatory stays as the accountant.
yes,
Well, again, I have nothing against her. I think she does a good job.
Yeah.
And then the CAO, and who is the other person?
yourself,
Myself.
according to this resolution, and the mayor, and it says any councillor as well.
What I could live with is, and you can have those signatories, but the accountant never signs. It has to be myself or Anthony or yourself who signs.
Okay, so we have the amended motion on the table. Our professional CFO is telling us that he can't live with having the bookkeeper sign. And your resolution is having the bookkeeper sign, is that correct? Okay, I call a question on that. Or unless, sorry, Councillor Rogers, did you have something to add?
I did want to add.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would want to further add to that amendment, if I may, Neville, that I think that we need, I mean, BDO is a renowned firm who's been doing this in the village and elsewhere for years. I don't think there's any reason to think that anything improper has happened or that anything improper will happen. I think that we should get a report from them on this matter and input into it.
So we've had a report from, sorry, Councillor Broughton, go ahead and then I'll.
I can't help but think of the visual that of the house is burning down and people are arguing in the yard about which fire hose to use or something. It's just.
Which house is burning down?
We've got a situation where I'm hearing that this, we're proudly saying this has been operating well for the last 4 years. And we're looking at the possibility of $80,000 to $100,000 of lost interest during that time. So are we looking at a $300,000 loss?
Talk about this resolution.
No, that's exactly what the resolution's about. It's
the signing authority.
It's exactly, and the signing authority allows the proper administration of the funds of the Village of Lions Bay. It's determining the signing authority of how the funds of the Village of Lions Bay are managed. This is not a personality issue or whatever. It's a financial issue. We have the bank manager saying there was a problem when that we were losing interest, significant amount of interest. Let's just focus on that one thing.
That's not the point.
It is the point.
It's not what we're talking about.
It's exactly what we're
Part of the resolution.
It's exactly enabling. It's the enabling of the signatories to manage the funds. And in addition,
Okay, let Councillor Broughton
in
finish.
addition, I didn't interrupt you. In addition, it's providing safeguards both for the funding and for the village. And it also, as Mr. Miller has indicated, if something happens to this one person, there could be a real problem with that. So right now, to me, this is an absolute no-brainer to move forward with. And I'm hearing professional advice that's telling us the best approach to take. And I'm hearing it being questioned. And instead, let's ask the bookkeeper whether it would be convenient, how convenient it might be. And let's talk to the auditor who has apparently allowed our funds to be underinvested for the last 4 years.
What?
Okay, all right. Thank you for your comments. I'm going to call a question on the amendment
All right, can I maybe just amend my amendment just slightly and see if this way?
one last time, and then we're calling the question.
Okay. Can we add the accountant and which gives everyone else the authority to do what they like, and then we can go forward as if she doesn't actually need that. And we can do a trial period where we do it with just these two gentlemen approving, and we see if things still keep flowing as efficiently. And then we can say, okay, it does work. She doesn't need that. We just test it to prove she doesn't need it to do her job. That's all I'm asking.
So, sorry,
Miller's saying
you're saying add the bookkeeper as a signator against the CFO's advice.
And run it on a trial period, but ask her not to use her authority. So
why would you do that? Why would you?
Because I still believe that.
Like, this is against accounting principles. These are standard things that our CFO has said would never happen.
We're not talking, I know we're not talking trust of the individual. I thought.
He says, you know what he said? He's never seen a weaker financial controls.
Himself?
Yeah. Confirm that point.
You're right, but I could live with that.
Thank you.
As long as you-
So can we do that?
He can,
I can live with that.
Okay, you could, so
I hear the amendment is.
the amendment is add the bookkeeper as a signator on a $5.8 million bank account.
In an interim basis.
But sorry, but to clean that up, every check, every process requires 2 signatures.
Yes.
So.
So by getting this motion here to the bank, will we cancel out that super signatory, which is now in place on a $5.8 million account for the last 2 weeks while we've been trying to figure out to get a resolution? Okay. All right. So tomorrow morning, first thing, Mr. Tobin, can you get that changed at the bank? If we approve this?
If we have a resolution that's acceptable to the bank, yes.
Yes. Okay. So that will protect the village's $5.8 million. All right.
Protected from what?
Let's call the resolution.
Okay, and just, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
We're calling the resolution.
Can I-
We're calling the
can I-
resolution.
Can I speak here? What is exactly the resolution?
Okay.
Yeah.
The resolution is as it is outlined here, and I'll read it from the top,
No, I-
with the addition of the bookkeeper being added. Is that what it is?
And you should, and the same thing, just you add,
Okay,
not bookkeepers, municipal account.
municipal
Yeah.
accountant. Okay. All right.
And what about the other friendly added amendment or addendum to the amendment that we receive a report from BDO?
That's nothing to do with this. right?
Yeah, nothing to do with this. And yeah, nothing to do with this. Okay, we call the question. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay, yes, motion carried. Mr. Tobin, please go to the bank first thing in the morning. Protect our money. All right, next item, 11.2. Appointment of fire chief. Recommendation that Barrett Germashide be appointed fire chief for the village of Lions Bay this 31st day of January 2023 and may exercise all the powers granted to a fire chief of the municipality under the governing provincial legislation and fire bylaw, and that the fire chief enter into a contract for his services to the village of Lions Bay as determined and agreed with the chief administration as administrative officer. I call for a motion on that.
So moved.
Second. Okay, second, discussion. And
the first-
we'll let Councillor Broughton go first as he made the motion. And then Councillor Abbott will be second.
No, I'll defer to Councillor.
Okay.
I don't know what the concern, anyway.
Okay, Councillor Abbott.
So I've previously been in closed meetings, privy to this contract, the negotiation where it started. And I'm now being asked to approve it with no knowledge of where it ended up. There's been no report. I would like to know the details of something if I'm going to approve it.
CEO, can you just give us some background on?
Well, I have.
Well, I think it should be in closed meeting, to be honest.
Well, just let me say, I have no knowledge of any negotiations that have occurred. In terms of the, which is the last paragraph here, enter into a contract of services as determined and agreed. Is that what you're referring to, Councillor?
Can we see what the contract is in a closed council meeting?
It hasn't been formulated. It's as determined and agreed. That's the language.
Oh, so we are,
As determined and agreed.
so they will come to council to determine and agree.
You have to be clear on the jurisdictions with the greatest respect, Councillor Abbott. The jurisdiction is under the fire bylaw that the appointment power is with council.
Yes.
The administrative power is with the CAO.
Okay, so this,
So this with respect, and this recommendation or motion clearly makes the distinction.
okay, so I'll put it this way, this councillor to do that appointment would like to know the details of the appointment can I be told, please?
What you're essentially doing, they haven't been determined. The details of the appointment are, you're using your
Okay.
legislative authority because
Okay, so
this is the only way it can be done. You have to appoint.
I'll try.
That's the key operative word is appoint. Appoint this person. That's it.
I'll try and do it differently.
Okay.
After we appoint this person, will council get to see the details of his appointment, including his remuneration?
I mean, in terms of the agreement, it depends how if you agree with this third part of this.
So we will get to make the agreement. I'm trying to get to, if we do this, are you entitled to go settle the agreement and do it with him without coming back to council? Or does council get to see what this agreement looks like? That's what I'm asking.
Okay. Well, my understanding is it doesn't come back to council.
It doesn't come back to council. So we're giving you the authority to make this appointment on your own.
No, you're not giving me authority. I already had it. It's not being given. It's already given by virtue of the community charter.
So then why are you asking for it?
Because
we have to make the appointment.
You have to make, thank you very much.
But this is once again one of those, I think someone said earlier, just because you can, must you? Why can council not be involved in these details when we always have been before? And maybe it's just the way we do it in Lions Bay. It's just the Lions Bay way. A little more cooperative with council.
When was the last fire chief appointed?
I know
25 years ago.
I know when he was appointed.
25 years ago?
Yes. And I'm also, and when Andrew resigned, I'm also familiar with what Barrett asked for, and it came to council, and there was a discussion about it at council from the CEO. He presented us with a report. This is the differences. This is what the change is going to be. And we saw that report. And now I would just like to know, are we going to get that report? The answer is no.
Councillor Broughton.
And it's conditional on my appointing him, to be honest.
I believe that the previous fire chief certainly recommended this individual. He's been an acting fire chief for some period of time. I believe it's appropriate for council to move ahead with the appointment, and that the jurisdiction in terms of the operationalizing of it is in the CAO's hands, as it is in many other circumstances in the village. And so the fact that council has the ability to frustrate this by messing around with the appointment, I have some difficulty with. So I believe that I believe that there's been quite a wholesome process to screen this person. They've been in the position for quite a period of time, and then it should move ahead.
Okay, Councillor Reuter.
I think that we should strive to do this in the way that we have done things in the past, which is that council weigh in on this. And I'm uncomfortable with moving ahead with this as it's written for that reason. Again, just because the authority exists somewhere doesn't mean that we need to toe that line. I think it's wise to have council involved. We're the elected representatives here, and we should have input and oversight into this.
If I may,
Yeah.
Chair,
Mr. Tobin.
if that is the case, that the council wishes to intervene on matters which are within the legislative purview of the CAO, then that ought to be made clear. Because I'm not a seer. I can't see backwards or forwards in terms of what past practice was 25 years ago. I am guided by the legislation, and I'm keeping it as clear to that as I can. Now, if there are going to be these exceptions, what are the exceptions you want generally? So you can give proper direction to me to say, in future, any matter that you're going to be involved with in terms of a staff person under your jurisdiction the council has to share in that, in terms of the contract formation and so forth. And you're making an exception in this case, and that just sets a precedent, because it then opens the door to anybody who is hired by, I see your hand is up, I'm still speaking.
Sorry, I've got.
Can I finish?
Finish up.
So what you essentially end up doing by this is you set a precedent. So every time I come to hire or a future CEO comes to hire, since I'm interim, to hire a person under their jurisdiction, it's like, oh, just hang on. Maybe the council must have a go at this as well, because this is the village of Lions Bay after all. And is that the guiding principle? Or is the guiding principle that we're trying to run an efficient administration where the separation of powers are very clear? And as well, you know, from previous experience, they have been more than clear. There's been a barrier. And my attempt has been to try and shift that barrier. So it's a collaborative model, not one which is based on an assertion of respective rights.
Okay, hang on a moment. I get one opportunity and then we'll go around the table a second time, okay? So this to me is another example of policies, procedures, and bylaws that need amending. But we have empowered the CAO with the powers and legislation, and we have to work under these rules. So I think we have to give him authority. We can't continue to step in and interfere with the operations of the village. It's just ridiculous, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Councillor Abbott.
First of all, comment on stuff. I know Barrett. I think he's the right guy for the job. Absolutely want to have the job. Just make that statement out there. I have no intention of frustrating the process or have some other agenda that I got accused of. He's the right guy for the job. I'm also aware of from previous council of what we paid Andrew and what Barrett originally asked for. And I'm not suggesting they have to be the same or which one's bigger than the other one. It is a budget issue that does come to council. To Anthony's question, yeah, I can be clear. Anything the CAO is going to change from what happened in the past and has been our normal process, positions, budgets, salaries, whatever, I would like to hear about them. Yes.
Councillor Roy.
The CAO just spoke about a collaborative approach and precedent. I mean, there is precedent already for doing things this way, and it doesn't go back just in one case to 25 years. There has been a way of doing this, and that has been a collaborative approach. And for that reason, I think that we as elected representatives and as executives should have input into this. I don't think it interferes with the CIO's duty by any stretch of the imagination. I think it would assist and inform and help it, and would be a fulfilling of our duty as well.
Councillor Brown.
I believe that we need to proceed with the appointment of the fire chief under the authority that's provided here, and respect the authority of the CAO to work this through. I believe that the CAO may wish to become more informed about what the previous discussions have been and so on, to inform his decision and his negotiation and so on, and certainly should be in discussions with Councillor Abbott and others, but not be restrained by that, because I think we're in an interesting situation here where the rules are really important, except when you don't want them to be really important, or this is the Lions Bay way or something like this. This is pretty challenging kind of way of approaching things. So I think we have an incredibly competent CAO that we should be asking to perform his job, and so I ask that we support the appointment of the fire chief.
Okay, any other discussion or we call the question?
Yeah, I would just add to what Michael was saying with the collaborative approach that the CAO just mentioned, and that would be the input of council into this.
Well, I think Michael made a good recommendation that Councillor Abbott go and visit with our CAO and pass on any knowledge and any expertise. And you were part of the previous council, but I do think that the legislation allows for our CAO to move forward, and we have to empower him. So my feeling is that look, the fire chief is an important position for all of us. Our most important investments for most of us are our homes. And if we don't have a proper fire chief and a fire department, you know, our personal assets are at risk. So you've said it already, Councillor Abbott, that this is the right man for the job. So why wouldn't we empower our CAO to go and put this in place? Come back to council, maybe, you know, give us a good news. I just don't see why. I don't understand what's holding us back here. This to me is a.
So, yeah, me asking you the question. Yeah, so. To get myself some water in a minute, sorry. We're talking about being more collaborative and more open, and you wanting more access to the village staff and the village office. Yet at every turn, we say, no, you don't have to hear about that. CIO does it all on his own. It's so contradictory.
I've want more access, and that's with the changes of the policies, procedures, and bylaws. And I requested that the CEO write up a report. He did a 40-page report. The whole ground rules, the whole sandbox needs to be adjusted, but we're currently operating under this.
Action has given us less access, not more, less access.
We're not changing anything.
We had before.
CAO has all the powers that the former CAO had until us as a council revise those policies, procedures, bylaws.
Former CEO obviously was just utilize those more collaboratively, I guess, because he did bring this stuff to council. I think it should come back to council. And I don't need to go find the previous reports and stuff from the CEO, previous CEO. They need a closed agenda. I'm sure there's a record of the minutes. You can get that, bring it back to council, see where we were, see where it moved to, and then let's go on with that. Just give council more input. That's all.
How do we get this done, Mr. Tobin?
Well, there are two issues. One is a matter of principle. In other words, by doing this, you set a precedent, which is effectively for any person that's going to be retained of a relatively senior position, it has to come back to council for approval. That is not the way it's been. And that's not the way it is in the legislation. And the other issue is, and we're not putting it all on the table, but, you know, there are individuals who are waiting to hear from you on some of these issues. This has already been delayed. So I'm asking for it to be expedited and be decided on tonight, because you may take the issue with me in terms of whether or not I should have the power and you're not being included, but there are perceptions about how this process is going and whether or not this person and others who may be retained by him wants to work with this community.
I'm well aware of that.
You're well aware of it, in which case, why don't you expedite it with the greatest of respect?
I would just like to see it get expedited the way we thought it was going, the way I was told it was going previously. And, you know, we're 1 week away from another meeting. Bring us a report and close in the other meeting. And if it looks like we've gone the same way as we've been trying to do for the last year, we're done.
Okay. Look, we need to get on with this, fire chief. We run the risk, obviously, of dare I say that, you know, this gentleman has been trying to step in there, and we don't want to string him along. It's not fair. So
I completely agree.
I'll call the question as read here. And do I have a motion? Well, we had a motion, a second. All in favor?
Yeah.
Okay. And Councillor Abbott seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
No?
Aye.
No.
Can I put a second? Can I put
Well, this one's defeated if you don't vote in favor of it. So
would like to reword it and put it forward again.
That would be an amendment.
that would be an amendment. Next time, please do it a little earlier. Are we able to go back on that, or is this defeated and we make another motion?
It's another motion.
It's another motion. Okay, so that's defeated. What do you have? What motion? To get this fire chief on board.
I would like to put a motion that we appoint the fire chief. But that, so let me just do this again.
And keep it within the legislations that we are operating under.
Here I'd like to say that we can announce that we want to go forward with the fire chief, but I'd like to see a report come to the next closed meeting for council to ratify an agreement. What is in that agreement?
And could I add to that, that we would like to see that report delivered to council, not at the 11th hour, but by Friday at 5 p.m. before the Tuesday meeting thereafter.
Everyone's knowing about this, so to say this in the 11th hour, everyone's knowing about the fire chief.
I'm talking about the 11th hour
So-
release of agendas.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
under the legislation, it's 24 hours, and you know that we've been having challenges with.
Let's not get into this.
Can we do-
My
You
position on
continue
this.
to throw in 11th hour.
Can we just have
I-
the amendment the way I
Mr.
put forward?
Does that amendment or a new resolution here work for you as the CEO?
Well, it's also a question of whether it works for the person who you want to appoint. Because basically, this is a non-appointment. You're saying, we'll appoint you, but not yet. It'll be subject to whatever agreement we come up in the interim. It has to go through this process, and then we come back again. So in the meantime, he's not appointed.
So then-
The whole point of the way this was framed was to separate out the appointment role from the contractual obligation role. And the appointment comes first. And they go to him and say, well, you haven't been appointed, but you're likely to be appointed. And so let's discuss terms. That's not an appointment. And it's very clear in the legislation that's your responsibility. It shall be appointed by resolution of council, and the fire chief shall report to council on operations and so on. And the recommendation is clear. Now, obviously, it's a question of whether or not you have sufficient. It's a matter of principle, because the principle is this: that as soon as you say that any appointment has to be approved by you in terms of the terms and conditions of the contract, then you might as well take over the whole thing. And so what you want, so it goes into closed meeting and you start negotiating terms. Who do you negotiate them with? With me? Or do you have the fire chief or a fugitive fire chief in to negotiate his terms with you? How would you like it?
I'm not asking. to
Whether you,
negotiate
of course you are. Of course you are. Because this separates those functions out.
I'm asking that you give us a report to tell us what you agreed with the fire chief. It would be nice if you'd done it earlier in the closed meeting on the same night when we could have appointed him. That's what I'd like to see.
Oh, well, this is a different understanding. You're now saying you want to see what the agreement is.
That I've said all along.
No.
No, it's with the greatest of respect, it's not, sir. What you've been saying is you want to approve it in advance. Correct?
Said I wanted to see the agreement. I
Yes, you
did.
did.
I did.
Okay, so let's be clear. Let's be clear.
Sure, I did. Yeah.
Don't fudge, please, with the greatest of respect.
Yeah, I'm not fudging. Anthony.
Well, I'm asking you to be clear.
Anthony, stop making it so personal. I'm trying to get a resolution that we can all agree to.
Yes.
Yes, am I moving as we did discuss?
Well, yeah.
As I'm meant to be flexible.
Okay, gentlemen.
Okay. Stop accusing me of fudging and things.
Gentlemen, we're going to move on. Okay.
So we can't
Okay.
afford it.
Well, you've turned down this resolution. We want to appoint him and allow our CAO to negotiate a contract. We all agree that this is the fire chief, that we'd be fortunate, very fortunate to have Barrett as our fire chief. And from what I understand, he is not asking for any more or less than previous fire chiefs. So I don't understand why we wouldn't empower our CAO to negotiate that.
And I will inform you of the agreement, of course.
Okay, so he would inform us of the agreement.
Can I ask a question here? Is it not the case that council is the one that under the legislation has the power to appoint the fire chief?
Yes.
All right. So let's do this the way that the new resolution is worded and move forward that way. That would be the collaborative approach and gives council the authority to do what it should do. So the motion is on
I'm
the
sorry,
table.
I missed the lot.
I don't understand what the motion is. You're saying, and Anthony, our new CEO is saying that we're setting a different precedent, that we're changing the legislation.
We're not
What-
changing the legislation.
Sorry, I'm going to go back to what I asked. Still think my ask was reasonable, but I don't want to be getting in the way of the fire chief getting on board, because it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time and a long negotiation.
Yes.
And it would seem that negotiation, the discussion. Have you even seen it? Do you know? And you said no, you did not know what has gone on. So let's appoint the fire chief. I would like to see the report under the inclusive agreement once he's appointed. And I just cross my fingers and hope it is what we expected it to be in the previous discussions that have come to council openly and told us what it's about. But I'll cross my fingers and hope you get that thing. But if you don't want to know what that was,
Okay,
you
do
want to go, fine.
you want me to read? So you're moving this?
Sorry, I indicated that if you wanted to provide that information to the CAO to inform the discussion, that would be helpful. If you don't want to
not-
provide that information, excuse me, if you don't want to provide the information to the CAO to inform that discussion, that's fine.
I explained that.
Can I put forward the resolution in a second?
Sorry, through the chair, can I just explain that again?
Oh.
I did not say I'm not giving him information I have. I said it's in a meeting. Do I have to go find it? I can't remember which date. Someone find it. It's recorded. It's in the minutes.
Okay.
I'm not holding
I'm gonna-
information.
Thank you. I'm going to read, Councillor Abbott makes a motion that Barrett Hermashide be appointed fire chief for the village of Lions Bay this 31st day of January 2023 and may exercise all the powers granted to the fire chief of a municipality under the governing provincial legislation and fire bylaw, and that the fire chief enter into a contract for his services to the village of Lions Bay as determined and agreed with the chief administration officer. Do we have a second? All those in favor? Is that an aye?
No, I thought you were going to add the amendment and that agreement comes back to the next council meeting in a report.
For information.
Obviously, it's for information. You already signed the contract.
Okay, for information, I'm going to
Thank
write
you.
for information. Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, item 11.3, proposal, and this is 11.3, Local Government Act, appointment of elected officials as soon as practical after the vacancy occurs for which an election under the section is to be held. The local government must appoint a chief election officer for the election, notify the minister of the elections, and the chief election officer must set a general voting day for the election, which must be on a Saturday no later than 80 days after the date the chief election officer was appointed. For the purposes of conducting an election, the local government must appoint a chief election officer and a deputy chief election officer. The recommendation is that the chief administration officer is appointed chief election officer, and that accordingly, the date of the by-election must be no later than 80 days after the 31st day of January 2023 and must fall on a Saturday, which is the 16th of April. Okay, do we have a motion?
Can we take 30 seconds? I need to get some water.
Okay, just before we do, I'll have a motion and a second to have this discussion. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Yeah.
Okay, second? Okay. We'll take a break before discussion.
We have a cookie?
Okay, we'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Broughton or Abbott,
Right.
you made the motion.
Eating my cookie, sorry.
Okay. Councillor Abbott, did you want to go? Well, Councillor Broughton eats his cookie.
Why doesn't someone else go while I get my computer fired up?
If I could speak.
Okay.
The Local Government Act is clear. We're asked to call a by-election as practicable. And I think this is the earliest opportunity we've had to do this reasonably. And suggest that we follow the Local Government Act and appoint our CAO as the Chief Election Officer, and I'm sure he will find a way to effectively and efficiently carry out the election. I think he may, I can't speak for how he'll do that, but the first step is to appoint.
Okay,
Councilor
Councillor,
required to do that as far as I can see.
okay. Councillor Router?
Yeah, we had some discussion as to costs and a private contractor on this matter. Where are we at with that? I think where we left it last time was that there would be some exploration of options for reducing that rather prohibitive cost estimate that we received.
Were you going to contact Minister of?
I think you were gonna reach out and research other options.
Accept the minutes, so.
Yeah, I read those minutes and they're inaccurate, as I had minutes that the CAO was going to explore that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I think you actually said you were gonna reach out, didn't you? I recall that.
no. Not on
Is that
this.
an elections officer?
He was gonna reach out see some other options.
Affairs. Yeah, anyway.
It doesn't matter, okay.
So my question,
all right,
my
good enough.
question is, sorry, my question is, where are we at in the exploration of the costs and we had received something last time. Where are we at on that? That doesn't seem to be addressed here.
So the chair,
Yeah.
it's not addressed, but we haven't pursued based on the feedback on the one proposal that was in, that appeared to be too costly, and
Right.
we're looking at other options. But at the same time, I'm also trying to get a better fix on what the actual costs have been, because there appear to have been hidden costs in the previous elections where staff time was used and may or may not have been accounted for. That I don't know. So I'd like to get a fix on exactly what the real costs were, because I think there were about 6 weeks worth of staff time involved, and whether or not that was accounted for, I don't know. But in the meantime, we'll pursue the least expensive options we can. And we already know that the 30,000 all in was not acceptable to council. So that says it'll be well below that, we hope. So I'll come back to you with information.
Okay,
So we're just to clarify, we're being asked to pull the trigger without knowing anything further on costs and options?
well, we have a contractor's cost of 30 to 35,000 with expenses, or we do it in-house, which previously was estimated at, what was it, 12 to 15,000?
Yeah, it was about 17, but it wasn't clear, and I'm still trying to find out
Mm-hmm.
if there were hidden costs in terms of staff.
Right.
It was well
but-
paid for a general election, right?
So what we do know though is election's gonna cost us, and a by-election is mandated by
Yeah.
the province and
Yeah.
within a timely fashion, so.
Yeah, and I'm advised that the cost of the general election is the same as a by-election.
Okay,
Same logistics involved.
okay, Councillor Broughton, was it you next, sorry, or Councillor Abbott? Sorry, I lost word there. Councillor Abbott, go ahead.
Just carrying on with that, the cost item, so this will be unbudgeted sum in the last 2 years, we budgeted over 2 years for this, money away each year, so that 15,000, as I remember, was budgeted. So how does that work? Given now we haven't seen any budgets yet.
That's a good question. Assume you're working off of last year's budget and this is an amendment to the budget, that's what I would do. As long as the council approves it, then you go ahead.
So do we need to do an extra step of amending the budget to approve that money, or?
I think you just approve the expenditure. I don't think you can approve a budget that isn't enforced yet.
Okay, but by doing this, we're approving the expenditures, that's nice. So, yeah, I guess it would be good to know what the number was then.
Okay, Councillor Broughton.
I don't know that we have any option but to follow the law in terms of authorizing, establishing as chief election officer as at the earliest, as soon as practical. So
That's not the law, just to be clear. As soon as is practical.
So this is your second opportunity to speak, is that Councillor Ryder?
No, just correcting something that that Councillor Broughton had said here in his second.
Councillor Broughton, you finished?
what? Sure.
Okay, Councillor Ryder, continue on.
No, I will reserve for my second opportunity. I just wanted to.
No, you're up. Go for it.
Do you have something to add?
No, not at this
Okay.
time. I'll pass on my first opportunity. You,
All right.
your second opportunity up.
I'll hold that second opportunity. Thank you.
Councillor Abbott?
So I guess my question was on the budget expenditure, whichever you want to call it. So we don't have a number, correct?
No, not at this point.
Okay. We're not suggesting we're approving $35,000, are we?
No, we're approving appointing the CAO, Mr. Tobin.
Suggesting, does someone want to pick a number? If we're approving the expenditure, as I just got explained, can we have a number?
Can I suggest this, that I will meet with the CFO and we'll go over the past records and see what's the best, appears to be the best reasonable number in the circumstances, and present that back to you. And it'll be backed up with some logistical information. That's the best we can do at this juncture.
In the next meeting?
Yes, for the next meeting.
Okay, Councillor Wright.
No, I'm okay right now. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just comment, look, it's been, I think almost 60 days since, Mr. Barmier, resigned, his position. And, it's very clear, you know, with what we've seen here tonight and seen in other meetings that, we need to elect another councillor because, this is just part of democracy, is having a functional democracy. And I think that, at least from my perspective, I don't believe this is functioning as well as it can. And I think that we need to move forward on a by-election. And by putting our CAO, Mr. Tobin, in that place, and him working together with our CFO and community members that I'm sure would step forward to volunteer, we can get this done. So, okay, I'll call the question. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay, next item is, hang on for 1 second. Next item, number 12, bylaws, garbage recycling bylaw, initial draft. Page 24. And was that just to be received or?
So I'm somewhat unsure myself. The request was that we amend the garbage and recycling bylaw based on some recommendations from the BESMA committee, which is what I gave in a track changes document. And the committee is meeting again on Thursday. There may be some small tweaks after that, but we could deal with those through the readings, I would have thought. And we have the reason and adoption. But what I see here would seem to be, this is just my document with the track changes taken on.
Okay, so are we taking this, just receiving this, is that, and you've got another meeting with the
No, I'd like to know.
committee?
No, I'd like to know, how do we get this to be a bylaw amendment that we can have 3 readings and adoption?
Okay. Well, through the chair to Councillor Abbott, the email you sent me, there was some commentary from you to me that that the CAO would be involved in providing some input into the wording and so on. Is that still your intent?
Yeah, my intent is the CEO is going to write a bylaw.
Oh,
I was just providing our recommendations of what we wanted to see changed. The easiest way to do it was to track change a document
sure.
so people could see the changes, but I'm expecting staff to produce a bylaw.
Okay,
I don't know.
that wasn't clear to me, so that will be done.
That's helpful.
That
Okay,
will be done.
okay.
Thank you.
So we'll,
So there is an urgency to this. We can have bears waking up soon, walking around the village. Yeah, I say it again, we destroyed 2 bears last year. There's an urgency to this. I mean, how fast can we turn this around?
Well, when do you need it by?
I would say it needs to be adopted by, I would say, March to be safe.
Oh.
I don't know if we have a warm spring or
So you'll have it
something.
well before then.
Okay, so could we have one in the next, could we have the first reading first, second, third meeting in the next?
Next council meeting.
Next council meeting?
I will look at it and make whatever requirements that I think the principle you're concerned about is enforceability of the language, correct?
Yeah, oh,
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
No, I don't know, the previous bylaws have amendments to previous ones, notations on them, whatever. I don't know how that stuff, the consolidations, and I'm lost. All I'm doing is, these are the changes we want to make.
Okay,
And then after Thursday night's meeting, I'll send you the final tweaks. There's a few of us not quite 100% dialed in on pumpkins. So there'll be a couple of tweaks.
so if you want to refer that to me, that.
I will do that after the meeting, but I mean, there's not going to be much change. We're working on it straight away.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll have a first reading or potentially first, second, and third at the next meeting.
And should we just make clear that any iterations that come forward should be the track changes versions so that we can all see?
Yeah, so that's,
Yeah.
and then now sort of annoying anyone by saying how it was done before, but what we used to, seeing in bylaw changes, we always see a track changes version so that residents as well as council members can see what actually changed from the previous bylaw.
Yeah.
Now I get that track changes version is not the bylaw, but it's just a background piece of information that help
Well,
people.
we can probably have that as the background, but I would like to present not a track changes, but a final, or at least close to final version. So it's just a readable document.
Yes.
So you don't go dizzy reading the track changes.
Yeah.
Because
So
I
we,
tend to do that.
yeah. So normally we used to get both. Here's the bylaw, and by the way, this is what we changed. This is what we changed is below.
Okay, thank you.
okay,
Just to clarify, we
Okay.
get both, a clean version and the track changes version. Okay, thank you.
all right. So we'll take that, Anthony will follow up on that.
Yeah.
Come back. So that'll be deferred.
Quick
Yes.
question. Will that bylaw impact, will it have budget impact and will it have bylaw impact? And will it have impact on the garbage contract that's going to be renegotiated?
Okay, there's 3 questions
Great.
and they're all kind of intertwined. So let me just
Yeah.
do as best I can. Last year, we budgeted for this, this bylaw, part the way through the year.
Okay.
So I'm assuming if the new budget takes last year's budget, we should be covered. And there was a component for a communications person, a base expert as well. So as long as you do last budget, it should be covered. The contract for waste collection has been delayed 2 years in a row. And I just started talking to me. The reason we're doing this kind of interim measure is because we haven't done that contract. So when we do award the contract, assuming we do award it to the same company using the same methodology, yes, this will have to be revisited. The intention was at that stage to separate the 2 bylaws and create an attractants bylaw, which we've had someone offer to help us do, paid person at a very reasonable rate, as well as a garbage bylaw. That was the intention. The best practice is to have a separate attractants bylaw. But that would only happen once we knew what the garbage pickup was going to look like. So that's been pushed another year.
Okay. So it's going to be, there'll be a lot of information kind of coming together on this.
Okay,
Okay.
so do we need a motion to defer that?
And it was a direction of council.
Direction of council to produce an update, amended
Okay,
garbage and waste collection bylaw for the next council meeting.
all right. And that'll come with any extras that Michael's asking whether there's any costs, and I guess
Shouldn't be any cost if we budget this year based on last year's experience.
Okay. Okay, motion for that, second? We have a second.
Do we need a motion?
Do we need a motion on that or not?
Well, it may be,
Yeah, I don't think we do.
if it's the consensus, then you don't need to.
Okay, yeah, all right, good enough. Correspondence, okay, the recommendation is correspondence for January 31st, a regular meeting of the council for the Village of Lions Bay be received as circulated. I think you've contacted most. I saw a lot of emails back and forth. That all such correspondence be acknowledged in writing, that any correspondence seeking an action within a proper jurisdiction of the municipality is referred to the Chief Administration Officer.
Can I just ask what the purpose of that paragraph is?
Purpose of that paragraph is so that we don't get bogged down in reviewing letters for that have been posted and read, and it assigns responsibilities to it.
Responsibilities for what? We have someone who's always on rotation for response. We discussed it as a council. So what are we?
We change.
Is a new piece here, right?
This is just trying to move it forward so that we don't get bogged down in this. The CEO has offered to follow up on many of these letters. So that's the recommendation is as posted here.
Okay, well, just try it. I'm not quite sure I'm following exactly, to be honest. So the numbers at the bottom, 9, 32 and 33 are going to be dealt with by the CEO. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
9, 32 and 33. Okay,
they're all action items, at least as I perceive them.
Requesting action.
okay. And so am I still going to go through and from my notes here tell you what about the other ones? That this is, or is it supposed to be some sort of consent agenda now?
Yeah, I think it's, that's the word which is used here, consent agenda. So they're given as read unless there's a particular matter and which you can want to bring forward by way of a motion.
Okay, it's a fairly dramatic change given that in the past, whether we did this, only one councillor took the time to wade through everything and just advise others where they could, whether it would be of interest to them. That's why we did it that way. It was in an effort to make things a little more efficient. But that's a fairly big.
We're almost actually at 10 o'clock, so we're going to have to extend the meeting, I think. Is that a motion to extend, or so this might speed tonight up and the future as well?
Okay, so
okay,
I'll second the motion to extend.
Okay,
half an hour. Well, this meeting for half an hour, we still go back into close, but
okay,
10:30, sure.
All right, all in favor?
Yes.
yes.
Motion carried. Okay.
Okay, so I'm still somewhat puzzled. So okay. Well, I mean, I don't know what are other people's thoughts about this idea of moving to some sort of consent agenda process here. I mean, are you talking only about general correspondence, though, not resident correspondence?
Well, this is all correspondence because some of the action items are in fact resident correspondence. In fact, a lot of the other items are just general correspondence, so that it's from other elected officials and so on, making little announcements and so forth. So none of those actually need to be responded to particularly. So the focus is on action items to be.
So we are not going to respond to resident emails anymore.
They're going to be acknowledged, and if there's an action required, then that'll be identified and followed up, and a report back to the resident concerned. That's the intention.
By staff.
Yeah, by staff. Yeah.
I just, I think residents' right to counsel should have counsel return the email, to be honest. Hear from others.
Well, you're still going to be responding. I think it passes over you. This is your last week.
No, that's not, we're not going to be responding anymore.
No, you is what he's saying. It would be me that you respond.
He's saying staff are going to respond. We're not going to get to respond anymore. What did I misunderstand?
No, that was yes, that's what I was suggesting, but only in the terms of the interest of moving this agenda very quickly. If you've got 40 items or or more on correspondence. Each one's gone through. That takes a lot of time. That's at least 40 minutes or more, 1 minute each. So it's a way of trying to expedite the process.
Now, we're still responding though.
It doesn't bring
Right.
councillors to say, well, I'd like to respond to that one or whatever, and let us know, and that'd be fine.
So
That's not an issue.
So it's by exception. So if someone wants to respond to something, they need to say so. Otherwise, there'll be no response.
No, there will be
There'll be an acknowledgement, no council response. There'll be an acknowledgement, yes, we got your email. I think
So the way I understand it is that there'd be a written response, like this was your quarter, now it's shifting over to Michael, and now correct me if I'm wrong,
That's not what Anthony's saying.
but I'm just, let me finish.
Okay.
So there'd be a written response, and that for the purposes of our meeting, we would take it as received, be responding either from staff or from councillors.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine with me. It was a way of trying to facilitate a speedier agenda rather than every item.
Right.
That was the
Going through.
So we're not doubling up on this. We're not responding in writing, plus we're not responding, during the meeting here as we're.
So the councillor then is responding. So not what Anthony said, but I think what you're saying is the councillor that's responding can respond without coming to council to get permission to respond, is what you're saying.
Mhm.
And then when you come to the meeting, there'll just be where someone pulls out an exception. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if there's something that's needs to be addressed that you feel is
by everybody. Yeah.
vital or.
Okay, so then the case is then I just quickly glance down these things. And if I think there's one that someone else should deal with, I say so. If not, I go back home and I respond as I see fit.
Sure, and I believe you responded to quite a few today. Didn't you?
Yeah, I'm playing a little catch up, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But I'm a long way, I'm not
We're
close to them.
These are all coming to council, right?
Yeah, they are.
They're coming, like I'm reading them when they come in.
Mhm.
So,
Well, let's you be careful about that. And it was one of my requests there. Sometimes they go straight to reception or agenda and you don't see them until they come into the package. But most of them come to council.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something we can insert where it goes to agenda or reception.
Yeah, we
But
could.
it immediately comes to council.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah,
Because there's a couple I couldn't find today.
okay. Is there any that you'd like to address
Again and again.
tonight that?
Well, yeah, let me just get them on those quickly. All right. Well, I guess you all better go read on your own then, because I'm not giving you the summary.
I've
Number two.
I've read them. Yeah.
Number two I think should go to the Climate Action Committee. This is this grant funding. And it's interesting, and I haven't given time to dig into deeply this disaster mitigation thing. I think we could possibly use that for what's going on down at the beachfront.
Sorry, which page is this on now?
Well, it's item number 2 in the general correspondence.
This is from our MP, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
from Patrick Weiler.
Okay, so do you want to pass that on to the committee?
Yeah, I'd like to take that to the Climate Action Committee. I think that's the right place for it.
Did you say the beach committee might be able to benefit from that?
No, I think we should leave it at the Climate Action Committee. But the beach committee got involved in, what's going on with this.
Yeah.
wall. We don't have the money for it. With the Climate Action Committee, I think we're the better people to push this forward. Okay.
Okay,
The next one, Social Procurement Initiative, I think we could just receive that. I would suggest that maybe staff should look at this. And maybe NI have a look at that. Veterans Affairs stuff, we can just receive. Their sponges, we can just receive. They had a workshop, they're having another one. I don't know if everyone went, but
I did.
you did. So there you go. Update for you, Michael. Have you seen it? Grand Fondo, I think we need to discuss this. We're asking for a letter of support of the Grand Fondo, which I think is one of those events that, everyone likes to support. It is very disruptive on residents that have to go anywhere that particular day. So I don't know. Maybe we should kick that around for 5 minutes. What do people want to do? I'm not suggesting.
what they're asking for a letter?
Suggesting a course of action. I'm just pointing out.
Okay, the Grand Fondo's been going for 15 years?
Yep.
I've been in a couple of them. We're not going to stop it. So.
Are we going to be silent or put in a letter of support that says, however, please acknowledge, the impact the village of Lions Bay. I don't know.
Yeah, I support the Grand Fondo.
Okay, so who's going to reply? Who's going to send them a letter of support? It's coming from the mayor?
That seems to be the most appropriate.
Okay,
Okay,
all right,
maybe put a little thing in about how disruptive it is, but we'd like to help you.
sure.
There's something from Alex Schwartz about microquakes and fracking in Min Valley. I read it at your own risk. Number 8, this Heritage Week BC. I'm thinking that's something that you might want to take this Historical Society. You want to take that? See if there's anything in it for them. Sure. Seems to be aligned. Patrick Weiler is doing a thing on upcoming budget, if anyone wants to go. Patrick Weiler, Capital Intake Rural Transit Solutions Fund to benefit people living in rural, remote communities. So that's interesting. And I would wonder, is the fact that we are outside the urban containment boundary in rural going to mean something on this grant? But I think we should certainly look into it. Did it come to us because we're rural? So that's certainly one I think we should look at. I don't know what's in it. I haven't had time to research it too much. Does anyone want to run with that, or should we leave it as a staff thing? But I think we should certainly look into it. Why don't I look into it then? Everyone else is looking at me. I need another job.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I mean, so
Okay,
Okay.
all right. We'll move to number 14, new business, and the agenda item was the posting / hiring of a clerk.
Hang on one second. What about the resident correspondence?
We're going to say that I just get to respond to them unless anyone else thinks they should. And I'm looking down my notes and thinking, is there any that should go to someone other than one person on duty? Which was the one that you said, Anthony, you were going to take care of?
There's one that should go to, I think, the one at the infrastructure committee. I think Mr. Balmier suggested there's some.
Yeah, that's the same grant that I spoke about earlier.
Same one.
Yeah, it's ended up in 2 places.
All right.
So got that one covered.
Yeah, well, there's also one
There were
addressed,
2 other ones, yeah.
there's also one addressed to me.
Oh, yes, I spotted that one.
Yeah.
From Mr. Brewer. But you want to take it?
No, there's one addressed to me from Norm. It came to council, but it's addressed to me.
Isn't that the grant one?
No, that's the second one. It's on page 54 of the
So why
agenda.
wouldn't you just answer that then and keep us informed?
So what would the direction of council be here? I mean, he's pointing out that there's a missing backlog of minutes. And that we had committed to releasing agendas early. I recall that distinctly a discussion. I think that I might have led off early in our term about the agenda being a living document that we contribute to and hoping to have packages a week early. I guess at this point, we're just hoping for the Friday before. He's also questioning the terms of reference on the finance committee. Which I've brought up a number of times.
So those have all been discussed in this meeting.
Have they?
Really, yeah,
Yeah.
they have.
What about the spirit of transparency and public participation?
And that's all been discussed
It would be
over
good
and over.
to publish agendas early and follow up with proper minutes. So
And
what should I be responding? That we will be doing that?
I would get you to respond that the requirement is 24 hours notice, and that the council is endeavoring to improve upon that. It's early in the staff's tenure. And yeah, we did discuss, we talked about that, trying to get it out as early as possible.
Yeah.
We're repeating this, and we're, this has been discussed 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. Can I just
even in
ask,
this meeting?
are we going to, regardless of what the statutory requirements are we going to have the next package by Friday at 5?
I'm not making any promises because I guess right now I'm flat out.
I think Mr. Tobin and staff are doing very well. And we have to appreciate, you know, that there's been a lot of changes.
Sure.
And, you know, I don't think we want to start putting demands on people and, look, we want to support them. We don't want to.
I would just add this, is that I think that this should be job one, is that, that we get the package at least by the Friday. We were hoping for a week in advance. Of course, our next meeting is in a week. But, I mean, residents have observed that there's a frustration of process and an inability of us to do our job and for residents to chime in. And I think I sent you an email to that effect. So I would really like to see that.
Okay,
I just have two.
Councillor Abbott.
Just trying to work out, Anthony, which one are you suggesting on the resident correspondence? You were going
There were
to
three that I thought that
9:33 and
three that are looking for action of some kind, I thought. I thought I'd made a note and
You did, but I'm trying to follow the numbers.
okay.
They're not working out for me. Let's just do this again.
One of them we've already dealt with, which is a referral that.
Yeah. So we've got that one done.
But there were two others that I can't remember.
Oh, for goodness sake, I've got mind. Someone help me out, page number. Here we go, got it. So you're saying R9? No, that doesn't make any sense. Sorry. Which was it this one that you wanted to do? That's 34 though.
No, it wasn't, no.
Well, should I be answering that?
Well, it's a question with, you know, they're asking for a legal opinion on what's this defamation.
Well, I'm not going to answer that.
No, and nor am I.
so with all due respect, this is something we could take offline. And I think that was the purpose of this recommendation is,
And honestly, it'll be really quick.
we're just,
I'll be
you know,
really quick. I'm almost there.
this is,
30 seconds.
like something that a phone call between you two, or you sit down and go through this stuff.
We'll be finished quicker than you if you didn't interrupt.
Well, okay, we're going to pass this on to, and I would encourage you, Councillor Broughton, next time around here, we'll move through this and so that we can get on to other items. We've already extended the meeting.
Be really quick. You listed 33, the one about the bike park. Are you suggesting you want to answer that one?
No, I just wanted to look into it further.
Okay, there's background to that.
Yeah, exactly.
I have the background.
Oh, well, then
Okay,
it's all yours in that case.
all right, that's all it was.
Yeah.
Okay,
Can I just say that, you know, it's standard practice in Lions Bay for residents to have their letters gone through and some comment as may be needed here, and they have an expectation of response from council. And that I feel should continue to do that. It would certainly be part of being collaborative and open and transparent, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
we are.
If I can make a response.
yeah, go ahead.
There's no disagreement with that, but
Yeah.
it's a question of efficiency, because some residents are sending like emails to individuals and they're responding, and they're also sending it to council. I'm getting them as well, the same.
Sure.
I've got some of the same letters to me that you've got. So we need to consolidate it in some way. So we're not all spinning wheels, dealing with all of this, you know, this snowstorm of emails. And I'm looking at how we can do that.
Sure.
Okay.
I just want to ensure that residents have access to their council. And feel that they are being heard and responded to.
Yeah, well, they've all got your emails.
Right.
Okay, we'll move on to, thank you for everyone's comments. We'll move on to new business. The agenda item, I believe that was added was a posting and hiring of a clerk. And Neville, that was your addition. Was there some comments you'd like to add?
Yeah. What's that?
Oh, I'm just gonna fuel the crew. No.
Okay, thanks.
No, thanks.
Okay, so first of all, I was surprised to see it. I never knew we were advertising for a clerk. We do not have the position of a clerk on our org chart at the moment. So that seems somewhat odd. Surely we need to do those steps first before we can place a position that doesn't exist. I was also, like the resident brought out, and realized it was only 1 week and only in Lions Bay, and it wasn't even on a village update. So we clearly haven't reached out very far at all.
Well, why don't you ask questions? And you're making a lot of assumptions.
Okay.
Yeah, you're making a lot of assumptions.
Okay. Okay, I'll make the last one now that I've lost
All
my
right.
train of thought.
Fine.
And then the last one was typically these positions, not just our municipality, all across BC, are always posted on civic info. So those are my questions. We'll start.
Okay, through the chair again.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, there's been a municipal coordinator position that's been posted for I think 2 or 3 months. It closed around about the 20th of December. And in fact, it was still on the web being advertised up until January, even after the closing date. In fact, the people running the web complained about it. Why isn't it off? So first of all, I looked at all of the applicants that have made, the persons who made applications for that position. None of them being responded to, by the way. There's been no acknowledgement, no correspondence, and some of them date back to the 11th of October. There are about a dozen of those. I've gone through them all, and I've also compared the terms of reference and job description of the municipal coordinator with the position that's been posted. Position that's been posted has a clear focus on responsibilities which were within the corporate officer designation, which is the one which was held onto the CAO before. And then he delegated it out. I'm not sure that was a proper delegation or not, but he delegated it out to the municipal coordinator. A lot of the functions of the municipal coordinator will in fact be performed by the new clerk if in that position, but it makes that role much clearer both to the community and within the structure, and it's also more responsive to the terms of the community charter. And the other, so that's the first point. The other point that I've already made is I've looked at all of the other applications, and we have some other ones, and I put them in through the same process. So I'll be responding to all the people who actually applied for the municipal coordinator position as well. And that was advertised internationally, it seems to me, because we've got applications from India and from Nigeria. And I've gone through them all on one part of my day on the weekend. The urgency is this, as I tried to explain, and at great pains to have understood, that I have really no support at a personal level in the office because others have got their own functions and so on. And so it's a real gap. And every time many times I ask for something, it's like, well, it's the municipal coordinator does that and so on. So it was short. Okay. So I put it on a short fuse for obvious reasons, that being that I need someone in the office early to get some of this stuff done. If you're welcome to come into my office. The floor is half full of unfiled documents. Some of them are dated 2011, 2015. It looks like they've been there for 5 years. So I need to be efficient and serve the community better. We need this person in position right now. And we've got some applicants from the village, and they're going to be interviewed. They've sent in their resumes, and you had the question from Rose Dudley this evening, like, has the position been filled? And the answer is no. We've got interviews being scheduled for later this week.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Broughton?
Currently we have an interim CAO. We have an interim CFO.
Yeah.
And this position is
an interim as well.
Is an interim position.
And it's well, it's very clear, and
it provides the opportunity as Ron said earlier tonight, to look at the organization, look at how we can efficiently operate within the community, and how things work, see how things can work better, and really. And so I think it's just providing some flexibility, but getting things under control right now.
Okay.
That's right. Yes.
Sorry.
Like any.
Marcus, any comments?
Yeah, this seems to be a new position and needs to be budgeted for. So
No, with great respect, no. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's not a new position. It's basically a morphing of the current position. And all I've changed is the title. A lot of the functions and descriptions are the same, and it's already a budgeted position. That's my understanding.
yeah,
So there's nothing new about it.
looks like a new position to me.
Well,
The other point I would make is there, as far as I understand, we still have a hiring freeze in place. Do we not?
no, apparently not. That's
No?
the first thing I checked.
And did you find any resolutions and any minutes reflecting the lifting of a hiring
Yeah,
freeze?
yeah, there's a reference that I was provided.
Where is that?
I don't have it in front of me at the moment.
Because I went and looked also,
Okay,
and this was from the minutes of the November 4th meeting. We originally had placed a 6-month hiring freeze, and then we dialed it down to 3. So I'm just curious, in the absence of any minutes that have lifted the hiring freeze, how is it that you propose to do another hire? And indeed, how is it that you have gone and hired a temporary CFO, given that there is a hiring freeze by resolution of council?
well, that there is a resolution of council, and I would see the minutes. So I can't point to them, but that's the case.
I think bottom line is we need these positions. We need our CAO to be support, to have support there. I mean,
Sure.
why would we challenge that? And,
Procedurally.
why would we?
No,
Well, procedurally, but
Procedurally,
It's completely agreeing with them. If we had a resolution, we need to fix it, either rescind it or revise it. We can't.
yeah, this was on November 4th, an immediate staff hiring freeze be invoked, including no replacement staff. And this was, of course, focused on our prior CAO, who held off, as per that, to focus on our existing team for an initial interim period of.
and then we
3 months.
listed that.
And I have combed every single minute I could find and have found no lifting of the freeze. So if somebody can show me where the lifting of the freeze is, please do so. Because otherwise, any hires that have been done have been or contemplated to be done are in contravention
Are you
of this.
suggesting that we
hiring
shouldn't have hired a CFO?
I'm suggesting that procedure be followed and that it should.
You want to shoot yourself in the foot?
Well, let me finish, please, is that there should be a procedure that is followed correctly here, which is that if a hire is proposed, that it should come to council. And it seems to me with this position, same thing, it should come to council. I just keep repeating that. And you may, I know you've said in the past, as to the fire chief, that this is setting precedent. I think the precedent is already there, is that we, as a council, usually opine on these things and consider them. And in this instance, as there is a hiring freeze, we would need to lift that before you can move forward in any way.
I think we clarified when the CFO resigned that we would need to hire to replace. And then when the 2 works people resigned, there was also discussions at that time.
There was some discussion, true.
Yeah,
but
we-
I haven't
we-
found any lifting. Just to be correct
Yeah,
here.
We
have
said we
lifted the
could,
freeze.
we said we would lift that because we didn't want to be without a CFO, or the coordinator position that was there and was posted. Why else would it have been posted if we had a hiring? It was posted.
Well, hang on a second.
Oh.
We in fact, show me where it's been lifted. That's all I'm saying is let's be procedurally correct here. It was a resolution of council and it provided a specific instruction to staff to not engage in any hiring. Now, we've already had 1 hire and there's a second proposed. So, I mean, where is this lifting of this hiring freeze? I haven't found it.
Well, why was all the posting done? The posting was done because it was lifted. We had a discussion on it. It was lifted and that's why they posted. I mean, you
Tell
know,
me where the hiring freeze is lifted.
would you have, you would have spoken up if we were posting these things without
Posting what?
Without authority.
It was a surprise to us.
I haven't posted anything.
Yeah.
I've never heard about this until a resident told me yesterday.
We had posted, you're following up on the coordinator position, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and that was posted, those were,
That was an old posting that had been removed. So there,
Long time ago, long before we were in council.
Well, there were applications still coming into.
Sure, but it was posted a lot.
Was
That
removed.
posting happened long before there was any talk about hiring freeze.
Okay, well, it was
Long before.
certainly my understanding, because that was the first thing I inquired about was, is the freeze been lifted? So it was not done.
Well, it would seem not. So, I mean, Michael's got procedure.
The way it
procedure
seems to
issue.
be fuzzy is if that's the case.
well,
Because there's been a practice that demonstrated that it had been lifted, even if there wasn't a resolution, if that's the case.
well, what stands is a resolution freezing hiring. And I mean, I don't want to get in the way
I
of
think it was
stuff here.
outside of budget, wasn't it?
Pardon?
Wasn't that the issue? Was anything that was in excess of budget?
No,
It was just it was an instruction to our previous CAO.
Peter came back and argued that the hiring freeze should only apply to new positions. He argued for that and we turned him down. Certainly you were very, very forceful on that. So
Right.
it wasn't just budget issues.
Well, when our CFO resigned, my understanding was that we were out looking for another CFO, sorry.
That never came to council and there was never a lifting of the hiring freeze. So I guess the takeaway here is that,
I don't need to carry on.
yeah, my takeaway here is that once again, I mean, I just found out about this being on the village website. This is something that has not come before council, and it seems to me it would behoove staff to bring these things for consideration before council. And then we wouldn't be in this pickle we're in. We have a CFO that's been hired in contravention of the hiring freeze. I mean, that's the pickle we're in.
Well, the pickle I'm in,
Yeah.
if we want to talk about pickles, is that when the Pam Rook was leaving, just before that, about several weeks before, she said, can I post this now? Can I post this? And she had a job description, which was the CFO for a full-time position replacement.
Mhm.
So I assumed that she wasn't saying, well, can you get permission to post this? She was saying, can you post this? And I said, well, I need to take a look at it. The assumption was, certainly from her to me, that it's not an issue here. It's not an issue. And if anyone would have known, it would have been her.
So was it posted?
No, it wasn't posted. No.
So,
Because I wanted to take a look at it.
right.
I'm guessing.
We had those discussions that
So
we were fine to replace those positions.
Yeah,
I found nothing.
Those were, well, you may not have found anything. We had those discussions.
It's not there. Plain and simple. There, I've combed every
Oh,
minute and I
okay.
invite you to comb it. There is no lifting of this resolution. That's just a fact.
And so are you suggesting that the CAO shouldn't have support and hire support or?
No, I'm suggesting that, and I mean, I'm sure the CAO would agree with me, is that this resolution stands and that it would either have to be lifted or expire. But my takeaway again is that these decisions need to come before council and not rest in staff's hands. This is the pickle we're in now, and we could have avoided this if this hadn't just popped up on a website, but if it came before council. That's what we're here for.
But you guys.
This is not outside of
Were
a
you not
budget.
surprised when you saw it? Mike, weren't you guys surprised when you saw it?
yeah, well,
The coordinator or
I
clerk,
saw what he was.
he needs support.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that he's reaching out for support, not at all. And why would I, I mean, we're here to
When I
help him.
I've got a part-time CFO.
I agree with Marcus. If it had come before us, at least we'd known about it. We could have raised this issue, could have straightened it all up. We didn't even get told.
When does the 3 months expires? When? On the 4th?
Probably soon. Yeah.
Yeah,
Next few days.
Yeah, but my suggestion is that we don't just wait and run the clock down until it expires. The takeaway is that
So
this should come before council
we're having
before it moves any further.
So we're having a good discussion about it right now. I think we all agree that we want to support the CAO. We want to support the efforts and you know, we understand that it's the best for the village. So
Yeah, but I personally want council to have control of these matters and not staff. That
council had control over hiring the CAO. We unanimously, the 4 of us agreed that we empowered him with all the powers that the previous CAO had.
And all the prohibitions.
And we said, let's try to support him. And now we're doing that. And when does this run out? It runs out in.
So I would ask that this matter come before council at the next meeting, and that if there are candidates, that you bring that forward and that we then discuss it as a council, that you don't make these decisions on your own. I mean,
well, that's with the greatest respect, that's a totally separate issue.
I think it highlights the issue, and I think we've spoken to this issue multiple times this evening, which is the authority of council and the necessity for council to opine and weigh in on these things. I think that's our job.
With my understanding that the restriction had been lifted. Otherwise, I wouldn't have.
We had a discussion and it was lifted with, you know, the resigning of the CFO, and everyone had, you know, talked about being overworked, and obviously we're hearing it from you and
Of the works crew.
and Mr. Miller, sorry, I'm still speaking. Mr. Miller has come in and after a couple weeks has said, look, you need support in here. You know, you don't want to have this, you know, we can't afford to have failure. That's no option. So we're doing things the best we can. Our CFO, we've empowered him. We unanimously supported him. So let's continue to provide support and provide that.
Let me just say on this unanimous support, this is something, once again, and you like to go out in the village update with your pieces, you are revealing things out of closed meeting without authority granted to you by council. Yes, you are.
I heard Neville talk about the closed meeting items tonight. I'm not disclosing things.
You disclose
now we're
that
switching.
without
Now we're switching.
council.
It's Marcus, you've got to
proper
I've asked to
housekeeping.
sit down with you.
No, let's not go into that road again.
4 times I've reached out to Marcus.
You want me to show you?
Can I? Let's make it every Wednesday at 12 o'clock. I'll be here in council and I'll be available. Well, no, I'll make myself available.
Yeah.
How about 12 o'clock on Wednesday, 12 o'clock on Thursday? I'll meet in one-on-one so that we can kind of get past this and we don't have to.
The issue on the table is this one. And I would ask that this matter
When does this
before
expire?
council at the next meeting, and that council is given input in this. That's our job.
90 days, is it?
I don't know.
I think it was changed. It was 90 days. And
Are we taking powers away from our CAO? Is that what we want?
no,
We want to micromanage him?
This is not micromanagement. This is our responsibility.
involved. We just want to know what's going on. Be involved. Hear about these things. I've got another. Can I have another question on this? Did I just hear you say that this municipal clerk is going to be the corporate officer?
They were performing some of the duties, yes.
As in defining the community charter?
Yes.
Okay, so you're first going to revise the officers bylaw then?
No, it's already there.
Give-
The officer's bylaw just sets out just says that person will be appointed and this person will be appointed. The CAO,
Our officers bylaw,
yeah, I've read the bylaw.
it doesn't have anything there about a municipal clerk.
It has a corporate officer.
Yes, who is the CEO?
Well, that's the question.
That's the way it is now.
Yeah, but the duties and powers are subsumed in. You could understand the way it's been configured. The
Right.
corporate officer was folded into the CAO
Yes,
position, but it's in fact, it's a separate function and legislative authority
I understand that.
under the community charter, right?
Yeah.
So,
and then the financial officer was folded into the CFO's position.
no, not to the same extent it was, no.
So does,
It was under that bylaw, CFO, I believe, is a separate authority.
no, the officer's bylaw, as I remember, it says the CAO will be the corporate officer. The CAO or the village manager, it says, will be the corporate officer. And I think it says the treasurer or the CFO will be the financial officer.
Just to be clear here, here it is. The village manager is to be the chief administrative officer and also assign the responsibilities of corporate administration. And number two, that the treasurer to be the CFO is also assigned the responsibility of financial administration.
Yeah, there we are. That's it.
Yeah. So, but it doesn't mention a clerk or a municipal coordinator as possibly having those powers.
No, but the reality was that those powers were delegated to your community coordinator. That's the reality.
No,
How was that?
you have to change the bylaw. You can't say you're not going to change that. It's a bylaw.
I'm not changing the bylaw. I'm doing the same thing the former CEO did.
But the reality isn't that it was delegated to the municipal coordinator, because it's not allowed under the officer's bylaw. So how could that have been the case?
And now you're introducing a role that's not even mentioned there.
Well, that's the reality that you've been living with for the last, I don't know how long.
But what is the reality?
The reality is that function was delegated out. And if you want to go further, other functions were delegated out too, such as signing authorities, which weren't legal.
Yeah,
So this comes back to the policies and procedures bylaws, meaning revising. So,
the procedures bylaw.
yeah, that's, so, yeah, but
I remember screening officer, for example, resolution coming to council to make the municipal court of the screening officer. I remember one's like that.
Yeah, it's in my contract. All those functions are in my contract.
Yes.
I recall it, yes.
okay. Can we move on? Can we move on?
We've moved past the 10:30.
Well, before we do that, are we moving on here?
So no, I'm not reading. I flabbergasted.
There is no resolution. We had a discussion. Is there any resolution on the table?
I have a question.
Okay, last question. We've had a lot of questions. Let's get a resolution and get some things done because this is going on.
Is the CAO going to change the officer's bylaw to make the role, to include this, what is it called, municipal clerk?
Yeah, that's what clerk.
To make her the corporate officer?
That's something that permanently restructures the organization. And this position we've got is temporary because the whole thing is in a state of flux. Because what I'd like to be able to do is bring back to you some recommendations in terms of the organization and how it should be structured and staffed. And so that's getting ahead of the game. And this position is temporary, and it's clear, it's in the posting that this position is under transition. So doing what you suggest would actually freeze things. If that's the way you want to go, that's your choice. But the implications are you're then freezing these new positions in, and that's not my intent. And the power is already in the CAO to do that, and that's what your former CEO did, whether you knew it or not.
All I know is I read the officer's bylaw, and I know we have to have one. It's mandated in the community charter, and we have one. And what you're suggesting doesn't comply with it. That's all I know.
That's a fused respect, another overstatement. You know,
Right.
it is. It's an overstatement. You have to have a more detailed analysis than that to make those kinds of broad statements. You really do, with the greatest of respect.
And can I ask you a question? You refer to it as a temporary position,
Yeah.
but it has an open-ended language to it, as I recall.
No, it doesn't.
Is there an end date written in?
It was something, I don't know whether it was 3 months, or there was some suggestion of 3 months.
I saw no end date, so it didn't look temporary to
Well,
me at all.
it says it's very temporary, it's subject to change, and it was pretty clear in the posting.
I would just like, given that there, unless somebody can find some minutes or something that the hiring freeze has been lifted, and I mean, you've done a hire of a CFO without bringing it to council. And I'm asking that you not move further down this road, and indeed that you bring this to council and not make any decisions on this.
Okay, is that a resolution?
Yeah, if it is also.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes,
Michael,
No.
the hiring freeze is still there.
opposed?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so defeated, CAO.
And it
In my opinion, you've got
Ron Miller's
authority on
position in
temporary
jeopardy.
positions, so.
Yeah, well, I just want
Okay,
to close this out. I just say that this places this,
Okay.
the temporary the
So-
actual CFO's position in jeopardy as well.
Okay,
We have a problem.
so we'll move on to item number 15, public questions. Marina, if you'll open it up, please. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And we have David Shore.
Okay, Mr. Shore.
Hi, as Ron's leaving, I just wanted to thank both of our interim CAO and interim CFO for their help. I think we're very lucky to have the two of you, and I really appreciate the input that you've had. And I hope this council hasn't scared you away. We really need your help, and look forward to the benefits that you'll be providing us in the long term with your interim position. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Next, we have
Maria.
Tamara Leger.
Okay, Tamara.
Hi. It's a point of information. On page C2 of the nomination package that everyone who ran for council signed, there was a sworn attestation that was signed in front of a notary or an election officer that if elected, the person would accept the position. And it's a $35,000 or $35,000, $40,000 is an expensive redo so soon after the election. My question is, what is the recourse, or what I would like to know from the CAO or the election officer is, what is the recourse to recapture this expense? And what safeguards will we be putting in place to make sure that this does not happen again? Meaning that someone runs for election, wins the spot on council, comes in and then decides for whatever reason it's just not a good fit and bows out. This is a serious expense. This is a serious job. The person running needs to be serious about it, have a good understanding of it, and if elected, they need to be held to account to do the job. I'm just wondering, like I said, can we recapture? Do we have any recourse? This is a sworn attestation. The four of you signed that attestation, as did many others in the community who put their names forward. So just any thoughts would be appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Tamara. Mr. Tobin, any comments?
There is nothing that I'm aware of in any legislation that gives any recourse to the public when an elected officer resigns on short notice. The only sort of measures that will be available are really not in the legislation, and they would include, for example, that for example this council could agree that there will be an undertaking when you're elected that you will unless there are extreme circumstances you will commit to the position, or alternatively that will be made part of an election campaign, which is a political issue. That is to say that the people in the village say, look, are you really committed to being in this position, and will you say so publicly, given this particular experience? But I can't think of any legal remedies that may be available.
It's an enforceability problem.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, any other
No
comments?
cost on the beat.
Not on this one.
Okay, no other comments. We'll move to the next question. Thank you, Tamara, for that.
We have Karen Jeffrey.
Karen?
Sorry. I'll yield, Anthony answered that. There's no legislation. You can't prevent people from quitting. You can ask, what would be helpful, just from a personal resident point of view, is that if we do have a by-election, maybe we could have more than one all candidates meeting, or so that we can actually have some open questions, and maybe that question can come up. But there's no legislation. People quit and run and quit all over the place. It's not unique to Lions Bay, that's for sure. So, you know, and I actually believe that it could be as low as $2,000 to $15,000. It's just an expense. You can't say, well, we're going to approve an election once you tell us what it's going to cost. That's just not, it's not possible. Anyways, so, but.
All right. Thank you, Karen.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, we'll conclude the public portion of the meeting. Do we have a motion to close off the public portion and move into the closed meeting?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your patience and for being with us this evening. Thank you.
Or to the cloud.
Closed meeting, council is pleased to advise that we've reappointed Jennifer Hetherington, Nicole Strahl, Hugo Van Hoog Stratton, Kit McLean to the Curly Stewart Memorial Trust Fund Award Committee. And Marcus?
And on the Lions Bay Climate Action Committee, council is pleased to announce that we've appointed returning members Clara George, Christina Lee, Norm Barmeyer, and Greg Weary, and new member John Robb to the Lions Bay Climate Action Committee.
Okay, and with that,
There's one more.
Yeah.
And we also want to report out that council resolved to remove the contractual limitations on the Lions Bay Beach Park project to allow the committee to move forward.
thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
So moved?
Moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Very good.
Thank you.
And just let me
Good night.
invite you gentlemen